All right. Hello, guys. Good morning. Okay. Everyone in. Hi there. Good morning.
Hi, Diana.
How's it going? Keep admitting. Hey, John, we missed you last week. I remember making a comment at some point saying, oh, no, because John, but he's not here today. Something I was pointing out to you. I don't remember now what it was, but
I was here last week.
I think you left early, or maybe I said it before you arrived.
Oh, okay. By the way, I have, just so you know, I do have another episode of Blue Bloods on tonight if you get a chance, the one that I directed.
Very cool. By the guys, does anyone know? John here is a director, and he is a film director. There's directors of different kinds,
Yes,
and
sir.
he directed an episode that's on tonight. You said of
It's on It's Blue Bloods on CBS at 10 o'clock tonight.
Blue Bloods on CBS.
It's actually about an episode of police brutality and a chokehold and all that stuff. Very
So,
George Floyd
cool.
context.
So I don't have access to CBS. So is it going to be on anything else or?
Boy, that's so interesting, isn't it? Wow. What is going on in the world? It's on CBS All Access, which is their streaming service.
Oh, okay. So meaning anyone can access it, or do you need to?
Well, you have to sign up. You have to subscribe.
I'm having like a feedback. Everything I say is getting repeated twice. Does someone have two of their sound?
I just took my other one off. It was me. Sorry.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, because I'm like saying something to John. He's saying something back.
I know. I'm so sorry.
We're talking over each other. My repeat is talking over his answer. So I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again? I apologize, John. You were explaining something and I couldn't hear the.
There's a streaming service that CBS has. It's called CBS All Access, and I have a lot of shows on CBS, and some of them, and most of them, in fact, all of them are on the streaming service called CBS All Access.
CBS All Access.
Yeah, and you can subscribe for like $6 a month or something like that. But and Diana, I am going to be going back. It turns out the show and everything in New York, I mean, the whole city, the whole country, and filmmaking has been shut down since middle of March. And I'm going back in early October to New York, and I'll be there for about 2 months. So if I can check into these your classes during that time, but I'll keep you posted about how that all unfolds. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work.
Yeah, it always becomes complicated, especially with the difference in, well, not only with work, of course, that you have to do. Everyone has their different.
Yeah.
But also with, I was having a hard time hearing, so I need to put in headsets today. But also with the schedule, I have a lot of in my credit online courses. I have people all over the country, and it's always like, when is something due? Oh wait, I missed the deadline. I'm like, well, yeah, because in that one we have assignment deadlines and exam deadlines, and everyone's like, well, you said midnight. I said, yeah, but I did say midnight Pacific Standard Time. Like the course is set for Pacific Standard Time, and so everyone's like,
SBC time, Santa Barbara time. I did sign up for your Illustrator class.
Okay, great.
Depending on how that shakes out, I may not be able to stay in it. So,
well, let me know about that one. I have people wanting to get in on the wait list, so that's fine. I mean, but either way, I can always let knowing that you might or might not be there, I can let an extra person in, knowing that you might be in and out. So that's good. Everyone go into the chat and start saying you're here. So go in and do that. All right. Sorry, I spoke over you while I was telling people. What was the other thing you were saying?
Oh, I was just saying, I think that's worthwhile that you, because yeah, I'm going to be on East Coast time, and I'm going to be doing 2 episodes back to back, and it's going to take about 2 months.
Nice. For the same show?
Yeah, for Blue Bloods.
Cool. Well, I look forward to checking one out. Okay, so here I am, trying to sign in my other computer, which is resisting. So give me 1 sec. So anything anyone has to say or tell about, here we go. I've been able to sign in. Who can tell me anything about having attempted something with any of the Photoshop features that we've been doing, any files you've been working on, any questions you have about personal projects? When people are signing in, it's a good time to ask me these kind of things.
I'll just say one thing. I thought
Yeah.
last week's work with
Raw.
what we were doing with
Raw.
Raw was a mind-blowing thing. I mean, I literally have 80,000 photographs on this computer, and have just worked with the software that Apple has given me and managed to create some pretty great images along the way. But this is a whole nother level. In Raw, which is just incredible.
Yeah, it's very powerful. So you
Yeah.
actually worked on some of your own images
I
after
did.
that class?
Yeah, I have a infrared camera that I've been working with, and been playing with infrared and defocused and things like that.
So you guys, usually RAW isn't even in the curriculum, because when our curriculum was written, RAW didn't exist. So I'm always trying to fit it in. But in the end, it is such an important part of the processing. So that's why this time I started with it pretty much from the beginning. The problem I found with the photos that you guys all downloaded, for those of you who are working from home, which is quite a few of you guys, is that some of those I imported from a teaching program, and they have settings that are already preset. And that was what was happening with the one that we had last week, that it was coming in with the presets of this other program, which is, it had those settings that were different, you know, recovery and things like that. So it occurs to me that unless everyone goes in and individually cleans their own, what I thought I would do is that I would clear out some of those raw images, put them in default so we can work on them again, and then have you guys download them again. So I did that to some of them already, but I didn't finish all of them. So I have some of those raw files in those folders that I had forgotten I had them in there. So I'm going to continue with that next week, but I'm going to have to ask you to download them again, that little portion. And so that when we open up, we have actually raw files that have not been worked on yet. And you can start from scratch. That said, there's always the possibility of when we open one just from scratch, you know, cleaning, going back to default and taking all the settings off and then starting from there too. So if I feel like if there's a photo that I, when we open up, I had forgotten to clear it out, I'll do that for you guys in person and show you how to do that as well. There's this thing about RAW, which is that you open it up, you put settings in there, and you close it up, and then those settings stay with it as long as it needs. And then when you open it up again, there they are, those settings are, but they're all non-destructive. Every single one of those settings, no matter how long, you can get rid of or change or keep and keep modifying. So it's very, very flexible format. And as the processing engine changes, right, because they keep modernizing the processing engine, they add more features or whatever, you can open up that same RAW that you processed 4 years ago, and all those settings kind of get updated into the new RAW, and then you can keep making it even better. So they really are doing huge leaps and bounds with that engine. And one last thing, RAW is the same engine that Lightroom uses, that Photoshop Elements uses, and Bridge in Photoshop. So all those programs use this same engine. So any photo that you process in any of these programs through RAW will be able to then have its settings manipulated through any or all of these programs. So that's what's really cool. Marie, you're trying to say something. I saw you waving.
Aren't there some brushes on the right side in RAW? Do you get to those or?
Um, I'm torn. One thing that I'm proposing right now, an advanced class, we're working on the curriculum for that, where I have more time. As I said, there's all these classes that I teach where the curriculum was written so long ago that there's features and programs that don't exist, yet I still have to teach kind of the curriculum, which is still the basic stuff that's necessary. So I'm always torn between teaching stuff that's not on it and leaving some things. And I do that, you know, I manage it, but in reality, I should be teaching you the curriculum. So I'm trying to see if we, what we're trying to do is to set up a second Photoshop or a third Photoshop. But the issue with that is with credit, where they start saying, well, we're competing with them if we start advancing in what we teach. But no, every time I've taught RAW, I've kind of stopped at the basic settings, but we don't get the time to use the brushes. But they're becoming so important that, again, I'm thinking that since we began with RAW at the beginning, I'll have some more time to keep working with RAW, and maybe I can bring some of those brushes. Because one thing about RAW, let me just explain what's up. One of the things I always say as a blanket explanation of RAW is that it is made for global adjustments. And what I mean by global adjustments is you can tackle the highlights, but all the highlights at once, or you can tackle the shadows, but it's all the shadows at once, right? So that's kind of a stereotype, not stereotype, that's what makes RAW different than processing inside of Photoshop, where you can mask things. But I'm not sure that all of you know much about masking yet either. So I'm trying to explain. In Photoshop, you can actually take a sharp line around an item, someone's lips, and paint them a different color, or a hat, or you can isolate and bring in another element to a picture. You can do a lot of individual things. With RAW, on the other hand, you can work on the area, right? But you can't work on that specific line. But with those brushes, you can isolate. And in each one of the tools, you can isolate, you know, the whole bottom right corner versus the entire photograph's worth of highlights. You still can't pick out only an element, but you can use those tools to bring yourself down a little bit closer to one area and only use the highlights of that area versus the highlights of the whole photo. So in general, all of the tools we're using in RAW affect everything. And so that's what I mean by global. And if, but there are tools to isolate some of the effects to only portions of the photo, not as exactly as Photoshop, but certain portions. And that's why I want to be able to get to that. So it's a bit less global, and it's able to isolate a little bit more, giving it that much more, you know, usability. So I'm hoping I can bring that in towards, maybe not now, but a little bit further in to the class. So anyway, thanks you guys for bringing that in. Hopefully you've all went into the chat and signed in. And so you guys aren't particularly the ones who are doing this as a problem, what I'm about to say, but other classes of mine and of other people are. So let me talk about something. You know how I've been recording all these classes? We've been mandated to record since March. Every single class is recorded, and then we put it up for you guys. There's a lot of problems with the fact that some courses, people were very much against it. So there's courses that we teach where people go in and, you know, open their hearts and speak about personal things. And they were very uncomfortable with the course being recorded. So I understand that. And other people have, you know, they sell videos of courses in the past, you know, they have a way of teaching that they sell, and now people can just get them for free because they would do this. So there's a lot of feedback against recording. I, in my case, personally have found it that most of my students are really grateful because they can go and review something and use it to learn more. But of course, I'm teaching, you know, computer applications where half your screen and then you have time to do it on your own. So I can see how it really helps for computer applications and maybe not for others. Anyway, there's been a lot of back and forth on that. And finally this week, the president of the college sent out a revised reading of the ruling and said that only credit has to record, non-credit does not have to record, because there's a second problem. And this is the one that has happened to me, which is students are not coming to class because they can access the videos. Which I think is awesome as a possibility for people who are attending class and one day they're sick, they have a doctor, something happened, well, they can access the video to catch up. But the day that you don't come to class, we can't charge so we can't get money for your participation because we need to have you in class, because non-credit works off of participation. Credit does not. Credit doesn't care if you're there or not, as long as you do the exams and the assignments. But non-credit, which is you guys, the only way that we don't have exams, we have tests. So it's your being in class. It's that matters. They call it butts and seats, but that's basically what matters. Not that you're registered into the course, but that you're in class that day. So maybe we have 30 people in class and registered, but 6 people are only watching the videos. Well, they're getting the course, so to say, without the chance to ask questions, but we're not able to get money for them reimbursed from the state. And we're already in a budget deficit. So basically now they're saying no recording, you have to be in class. So I'm gonna still record them. But what I'm going to do is, if you're a student who's coming to class and one day you can't come, right, because like something's happening, and you ask me, I'll definitely give you access to the recording. But it's going to be much more measured. It's not going to be like everyone can just watch the recordings and not come. So here's a solution too. If you, within the 9 to 11:30, is this one finishes at 11:30, right? I'm always torn, but some at 11:30, some at 11:55. Between 9 and 11:30 or 11:25, if you sign in to the course at some point, say that you have an appointment and you could only come in at 11, or you have to leave at 10:30, but you signed in at 9, or even if you sign in for half an hour and you're a student who comes all the time, as long as you're signed in, I can then give you an attendance for that day and then give you the video. And that works for me, because I know that with the video you'll be catching up, but then I'll also be able to say, yeah, this person was in class today, even if it's by watching the video, but you did, as far as I'm concerned, the work. Okay. So as long as you, if the days that you can't come, as long as you sign in, even for a short time, that allows me in the roster to mark you as attended and then give you the video for you to catch up. So I'm okay with that compromise. But if you don't show up at all and don't tell me you're missing and suddenly want all the videos, that's beginning to be a little bit off. Okay. So anyway, that's the new ruling, and that's the way I'm thinking I'm going to work around it. Okay. So if you have anything to say or any ideas about that, I've actually think that it's good for people to be able to, in my type of courses, I think it's good that I can say, we'll go and review this and catch up. So that said, if you do miss a class, do try to review that half hour you missed or something. Sometimes it's more things that we're chatting and that you understood, but some things it's a new feature that then I'm building upon. All right. How are we doing? Anything else to say or questions or anything to say about everything I've just been saying before we get going?
Dan, I think it's a great compromise that you came up with, because even if you're present in class, there may be things that you'd like to go back and review and just see it next time. Or if you don't have a chance to practice, it's like, I don't really quite remember how to do that. And classes like this, I think it's really incredibly helpful to have that resource to go back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad. No, I'm actually thought it was a good idea, but something that could never happen. I can't be recording my class in real life. So it was one of those perks of the many ups and downs of teaching. It was one of the perks of Zoom, is that it could be recorded. But I totally understand the point of view of people from whom it wasn't working for their type of classes. When someone has to know that what they're saying will be on YouTube, even though the YouTube is private, as long as someone shares the link, people outside of the class can access the videos. So if some person in the class shares a link to someone outside of the class, then that stops, you know, there's someone else outside of the class who can see it. So I understand the privacy concerns. Okay. So there we go. Thanks for saying that, Lisa, and hopefully you all can continue enjoying the world. If you're in my class and you're always here and now and then you can't make it, you'll have access to all of the videos. It's just people who decide, well, I can't make it, so I'll watch the videos, I promise, which I've had in other of my classes happen, and I'm like, it's not gonna work anymore. Okay. I'm signing in on this other computer as we speak to the VM view. So if you are in VDI, go ahead and do that, because let me actually, as usual, quickly share that process, but in case doing it with you guys helps.
On that, you were just on, there's a place where it says you can check the box to always go back to the HTML or whatever. Is that something we should do?
We always need to click in on the HTML. Yeah. You mean the one that comes, okay, let me go back. This one, sorry. This one?
That one, yes.
Yeah, right below that, there's that box.
Yes. You can click on that and then you'll always be in that mode. And you can save your address and it'll always remember it. The problem is that if I do that, when I demonstrated this for a new class and new students, then I won't get these options. So I can't do that. I need to be able to show the steps. But you can definitely do that. Check right here and then you'll go straight into this mode. Yeah, that little bubble there. Thanks for asking. And then here you can have your computer remember it, right? Which again, if I do that, then when I need to demonstrate it, to teach it for the first time, then it wouldn't come up for me. And that's why I have to keep doing this all the time. But you guys don't have to. You can just have it all memorized. So yeah, definitely go the easy way. I have. And let me give me a sec. Got my fan falling. There we go. Okay. Student desktop. Now this is the part that I always do want to do again every time for everyone who's doing VDI. Remember that when you start, you can't start with your images if you haven't refreshed them from your Google Drive file stream. So if you didn't sign out the last time you were in VDI, then you have to disconnect the account and then connect again. Now remember just to disconnect at the end of each session, and then you can go straight into just signing in. All right, we didn't know that at first, and when I was teaching in the summer, files kept getting corrupted, and we finally figured that one out. All right. By the way, those of you who are working on your own images at home with your own things, I always recommend or request that if you have, hold on, I'm trying to sign in from here again. I always request that you please, I'm having issues. There you go. Wow, that took a while. That you please send me images or share images with us to just show people what you're up to. Leland isn't here today. He's gonna sign in, but he was in my Dreamweaver class last night. Dreamweaver's Leland's a student who started with me, I don't know, I'd say 4 years ago, and he took all, you know, every one of the graphic classes I teach. Hold on, I can't write this and talk. There we go. Photoshop many times, Illustrator, InDesign, Dreamweaver, all that stuff. And he knew nothing. He knew nothing. And now he's actually, again, a couple of people here are doing that. He's officially working as a designer, and he's right now working on a challenge from Adobe with a team of designers. And it's just really, really exciting for me as a teacher, you know, dedicate my time to teach you these things. to see you guys progressing and working on stuff. So I really appreciate knowing with what you're doing, and then if you have problem files during time that you're in class, go ahead and share with me so I can help you. All right. So now for everyone who's in VDI, the photos that we're going to be accessing are going to be at this point copied into my drive. Was anyone not in class last few weeks and your photos are not copied yet? Is anyone joining us today who might have been away or not present? I don't think so. I'm looking at the list. Okay. All right, so then we'll just make sure to open both Photoshop and Bridge. So I'm gonna open Photoshop. Make sure to fill your screen with Photoshop and then open Bridge and fill your screen with Bridge. When people share their screens, I keep finding that people resist that. They're so accustomed to grabbing, especially if you're on a Mac, to grabbing the program and moving the window and pushing it out of the way to get to something else. And that is such an inefficient way, a completely inefficient way of using your desktop, your Mac. So while there is the possibility of Bridge, the fact that the Mac allows you to do that, whereas the PC doesn't. In the PC, your programs have always just filled your screen. On the Mac, programs can be portions of your screen, but if you can share because you have, your contacts up and your calendar up and you see them all the time, that's really good. But when it comes to a program like Photoshop, where we need all the space we can, there's, so many tools that you can use and you need to be able to see everything, then it's much more efficient to learn how to use the dock. And for PC people, that means the taskbar down here, the taskbar here at the bottom, where you switch from Photoshop there to Bridge there, Photoshop there, Bridge there, instead of opening and closing. And that equivalent thing, which I cannot demo for you because I'm demoing VDI. Actually, I have my own Photoshop in Mac. I can demo it at another time. Then you just click on the two icons, but you fill both screens. And how do you fill both screens is by hitting that big, in the Mac side, it's on this side, the green button on the top of your program. There's three, there's yellow, red, and green. Just hit the green button and have it fill your screen. It's not full screen, it's just for Photoshop, it just fills your screen. Just trust me and do that. And I know that I keep saying that, and then when you share, it's not that way. So just give it a try, and then you'll stumble if you've never done it. But this way you're in class, give it a try. And then when you're like, I can't figure out how to do that, ask me, and then I'll help you. And then you'll go, oh, but if you don't give it a try, you'll never learn how to do it. And then you have to trust me. If you trust me in other stuff, trust me that it'll be make a huge difference in how well, when you're doing these graphic programs, and how well you get to see things.
I have a question, Diana.
Yes.
So what do we do when we get the message something went wrong?
Oh, the something went wrong, ignore it, because it's just they're just showing it for some reason in VDI over here. When you open Photoshop, there's this thing that says something went wrong. And it's because your computer is trying to access Creative Cloud, the Adobe Creative Cloud, which we as VDI users don't have. So the computer's like, something went wrong because it can't find your photos in the Adobe Creative Cloud. You just ignore that, forget that. So everything else is working. That something went wrong will mean nothing, because it just means it's trying to retrieve photos from an area that we just don't have access to in VDI. So just ignore that.
What's the next step?
So nothing, we open a photo and it opens. It's like, ignore it. It's as if it weren't there. Imagine that it says instead, good morning, Mira. Okay, ignore it. So just open a photo from Bridge and it'll open in Photoshop. Okay, or even open it from Photoshop if you want, but just ignore it. So over here on the left, there is a way maybe that you can leave it in default to ignore that. So see if I click here, Cloud Documents. For me right now, it's saying you have no cloud documents, but sometimes this is the part where you get the something went wrong. Or if you go to Lightroom Photos, because it's looking for stuff and it just says it's empty. But for some people, it gives the something went wrong mode. So if you change to, for example, that one, or to home, or one of those, then it might just show you, like in home, it just shows you the recent photos we've been working on, right? So that's a better place to leave it. And since Photoshop in everything that you do stays the way you set it last time, so if you now shift to one of these here, then whatever shows up in here should be what shows up next time. And that way you don't have to worry about that something went wrong. Were you able to shift to one of these guys, Mira?
Yes, now I see I shift to home and it's the same.
Is it showing you this kind of stuff? Okay, so in home, what it's teaching you, what it's doing at the top is it's giving you access to tutorials. And if you guys are home and have time to just run through some tutorials, these are all really good tutorials. But when you click on any of these things here, it takes you to the the website, Adobe website, and it shows you tutorials. Same with Learn. All of these are little tutorials where it's choosing you how to crop and straighten a photo, custom black and white, remove small imperfections. Okay. In fact, I've downloaded this image because I thought it was cool, and I've used this as a sample sometimes. So these are all tutorials that are in the web, every one of these, and you're welcome to click on them, not today, but it's just a feature that they're offering inside of Photoshop that they didn't some years ago and that now they've had for the last few years. So, but in home, you can get your recent photos here, which is cool because if you want to work on any of these, then you have them handy instead of having to open them up. All right, so then once you're living in that, you might not get that something went wrong anymore. All right, so let's go to our photos in Bridge. And where I'm at, for those of you who might be trying to follow along from home, we're in the Photoshop class files, general photos, because in the Photoshop class files, there's a whole bunch of folders. I had them all mixed up and then it was getting confusing, so I put them inside of folders. And the one that has, in this, because of the download, anyway. So the general photos, the second folder, that's the one that I'm in right now. And when you double click, you get to this general folder, okay? Now, what I meant, by the way, by the fact that the raw files that I have here have been worked on, is the fact that you see this example. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger so you can see my icons bigger. So I'm going down to this zoom. Let me put the spotlight on my tool. Here we go. So I'm going down to this little zoom area here to make things bigger, but I just wanted to show you that whenever there's a photo that's that's a DNG, any kind of raw image, but you see this little icon there, that means it's already got settings from someone else having set them up. And these are this set of photos that I'm just showing you, a couple of raws that I have in this area. I have 2 more raws down there. These I brought in from a program. You know, there's different places where we as teachers can access sample files, and that's one of them. And so this one and this one that's called Clarity with a Bird and this coffee cup, they already have these markings, which means that they already have preset settings. And that's what I was referring to before, that I want to clear them up to open them from start. Anyway, all right. So back it up
Diana?
again. Yes.
Would that also show up with our photos too? If we work on something and then we've got them in
Yeah.
a folder? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, through, you see that through Bridge. Okay, if you're just looking at the file as a photo, here, let me just show you. If I'm just looking at the photos in, say, my Finder or my File Explorer, where are they? Actually, I have them still in my shared drives. Photoshop, shared drive. If I'm looking at them in here, so I'm going to go into that same folder. This is in the Finder, or this is not in Bridge. Then when I see one of those photos, here's adjusting color. See, it doesn't give me that kind of marker. But what it does do, and hold on, here we go. So now I'm just looking at this in the Finder. But what you can see is a file that we don't see in Bridge. So next to coffee, I'm seeing something here that says XMP. You see that? I don't know if you have it in your downloads. On the Mac, they don't show automatically. You have to go to view and say show hidden files. On the PC, at least in this VDI mode, it's showing me the XMP. So let me explain in case you do see some of these XMP files yourselves, which in Bridge we're not seeing. See, if I go in Bridge, I'm not seeing an XMP file. What an XMP file is, okay, so I'm just seeing coffee and no XMP file. But in the File Explorer, I'm seeing that XMP file. And what that is the actual sidecar file. Raw images, what they do is they have one image is the photograph. And then all the corrections, changes, settings that you did in RAW, they get saved as a separate file. So this is an NEF, which is a Nikon RAW file. It's been worked on in Photoshop, in RAW. So when you save those settings, an XMP file gets created, and that becomes what's called a sidecar file. And sidecar from, you know, motorcycles where you put that little sidecar and you could ride someone along with. So this needs to ride along with that for the changes to exist. If I get rid of this file here right now and I open this one, then it's back to the original unprocessed photo. They need to stick together. Now, in order to avoid this of two images that need to stick together, is that Adobe created the DNG. So the DNG, this one here where we see that it says DNG, that's not set by the camera. That's a photo that used to be maybe taken in Nikon. Then you got an NEF like that, or taken in a Canon where you get CR2 is what the Canon would say for a raw file. So the extension changes depending on, you know, Olympus, OMD. I think in our handouts I have all the names of the different camera manufacturers and what extensions they give them. All of those need a sidecar file, but if you open it and save it as a DNG, which this one is a DNG and this one is a DNG, then that format, what it does is it kind of wraps. It's like I always think of those Tupperware containers with a design thing in the middle where you can put your soup in your salad or your sandwich in your salad, you know, 2-in-1 with a little top. That's what a DNG is. It carries your image and your instructions, your XMP file in one. Okay, so that's what a DNG is, versus a Nikon, left as a Nikon, needs its XMP file. Bridge hides that because you don't ever need to open that XMP file, but you'll see that just in the basic file Explorer on the PC. And on the Mac, since it also knows you don't need those files because the Mac's a bit more intelligent. Sorry for PC lovers. For when it comes to graphics, the Mac is better. Okay, there's other things that it's not better at. But so it hides it because you never want it, and you might just copy this file and then get rid of that one, and you might not know what it is. So in the Mac, you don't see this one, and it just becomes attached like with a string. And if you copy one file, the other one comes with it. So it hides that. So to see the XMP, you have to say view hidden files. You can go up to your Finder and go to the view and say view hidden files, and then it'll pop up. Okay.
Deanna, can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yes.
Just for clarity.
Mhm.
Okay, as an example, if you're making a slideshow video or something like that, and
Yeah.
you want this picture, but it's the raw one that you made changes on and you know that it's there, and then you got the XMP. So you're saying you save it as a DNG and then you upload it into your slideshow or whatever. Because I've had that thing where the picture in the slideshow goes, I can't find whatever. So is that what you're saying, is you save it as a DNG and that will be its own containment?
Not necessarily.
I don't know if that's a great example, but I'm trying to
No,
understand.
it is a good point, but no, basically, hold on. I was trying to see if I could show you this in, not necessarily. You see, raw files are not output files. So let me explain what I mean by that. And I know it's a bit technical. We're not opening a file here, but it's important that you understand. A raw file is equivalent to a PSD. A PSD is when you have layers and stuff in your file. Those files are great working files for you to work on it and to do stuff, but it's not the file that is the output file that you should be sending to PowerPoint
Oh, of course.
or to a brochure or to a book.
That makes sense.
Although now PSDs can be used for PDFs and stuff like that, but you wouldn't send a PSD to a professional printer. You would send them a PDF or an InDesign file or whatever. If it's part of and I'm saying if it's part, not as a photograph itself, but if it's part of a project, a PowerPoint, a book, a brochure, you know, things where your photo is part of a whole different project. So what you would need to do from this raw file after you've processed it is you would have to save, for example, a JPEG or you know, an output file that you then insert that one into your PowerPoint. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
The raw imagery, not only is it huge, these files, the raw files and the layered files become much bigger, but they're the ones that I label them. I actually had this whole labeling system and I call them my master files, the ones that I actually am working on. And then from there, you say one file to print as a 5x7, one file to go onto the PowerPoint, one file to go, and how you save them is different according to the resolution needs. Is a screen is going to show the photograph differently, and PowerPoint screens, that is going to be shown as light, right, through a monitor, or even if it's projected on a wall, versus something that you print, and that's going to be printed on paper with inks. And so you need, that's the whole conversation of resolution, which remember last time I told you guys to, these things are hot today, but I can't hear you guys without it. Sound today is really off. So don't forget that how you save a photo for print or for screen is very different. And I had told you to start, if you hadn't yet, to start working on that handout. Remember the resolution handout, the new Pixels handout? You guys remember that? Everyone's like, I don't know. Did anyone go read the handout? So in the, just so you remember, in the Photoshop shared drive, whichever way you're accessing it, there's a folder with the Photoshop class files that has all our images, but the rest of what's out there, these are all handouts. And I had requested that you read this one, the new Pixels image size, image resolution, and Photoshop. And those of you who had already read it for another class, another time, I had asked you to go in and read the how to resize images for email and web, or image resolution and print quality, those two. So if you don't remember that, then write it down now. New Pixels image size, image resolution, and Photoshop is what you need to read, everyone. Other than someone who's read it so many times in my other classes that you know it really well, in which case, or if you've done reading this one, then I want you to read these two, how to resize email and web, or image resolution and print quality, which basically could be called how to resize images for print, right? So these two, because it does break down. This is kind of a general explanation of all in one, and then these are specific explanations for these two. All right. So I'm going to make the assumption that you've read it. And as I start speaking about resolution, I'm going to assume that you've read it. If you haven't, please write it down as the thing to do this week.
Diana, that's not in the class file download. Where do we access that?
Okay, so if you just go into, you go into, let me actually not do it through here. Go into pipeline. Okay, so I think I've attached to my emails a few times instructions on how to get to the handouts, but I can send them out again. You go into your pipeline, student non-credit, Google Drive, shared drives, Photoshop, shared drive. And so I had you guys just right click and download the Photoshop class files because we needed them to work with. But the rest of it is in here. And if you want to download all of these, go for it, except for there's some big videos, and that's why I didn't make you download these. These are videos of how to do stuff. So if you want to download, for example, the new image resolution in Photoshop to read it at home, well, you can either double click on it and read it like this on screen, or you can right click and say download, and then open it up from your downloads folder and download the individual ones that you want to read versus the whole set. Because when I first had you guys download the whole set, all these videos are humongous, and it became a real problem. And the videos are how to access VDI, how to access these handouts and stuff. So how to access LinkedIn Learning. You need them, but it makes no sense to download them onto your computer. Just click them on from here. So that's why. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So this is how you get to them from anywhere else. And then if you are inside of VDI, I have to reconnect because 1 second, I jumped out of it at one point. It's okay. sbcc.edu. It'll take me back to where we were, so it's not a big deal. But if you're inside of VDI, you can do the same thing. You can go inside of VDI to your program, or oh no, did I really? Do I need to sign in again? Please don't tell me I need to sign in again. No, I don't think I need to sign in again. I'm thinking of the Google Drive. That didn't completely disconnect me. All right. Any other questions about the handouts, you guys? So that there here as a file is exactly the same thing that I showed you guys here. For those of you who, when you do your handouts in Pipeline, most people see them this way. Most people see images. That's the default setting for Google. I like to see the icon, the names of the files, so I do that. But this is really how this shows up for you guys. And so this one here is the new image size in pixels. Okay. And then this, otherwise, this is the how to resize images for email and image print resolution. Those would be the other two that I'm asking you to see. Okay. All right, so everyone back to Bridge. Ask me anything else you want about those and how to access the handouts and stuff. If we're gonna be doing this whole thing much longer, I'm considering creating a website with links to all my stuff. It might be easier for people to access it, I don't know. Anyway. I don't know how much longer we're going to be doing all of this online. Okay, so back in Bridge, I want to start with a couple of basics of Photoshop that that are very typical of photos that you take that need to be worked on. So at the very bottom, at the S level for the word straighten, okay. I have some images here, which happen to be kind of in my viewing of sizes that are kind of together, which is this one here that says straighten. This one here says quick fix. This one here, which is a portrait. This one here, which is a little bit soft. There's different problems with different ones of these images that are very typical of images that you just pick up the camera and shoot and that need help, including this one over there. Which is usually what most people want to do when they take a photograph. They want to help their image look better. So let's start with this straighten one down there. So double click on it. And it's going to take you to Photoshop and open up in Photoshop. And once it's open, I want you guys to start telling me what you think is wrong with this image. And the only thing you're not allowed to say is that the kid is not cute, or he's not combed, because that is the only one I don't, you know. Yes, my kid, wild boy who never combs, and he is adorable. Other than that.
It's tilted.
Yes, it's, yeah, wonky. what else is wrong with it? Open it in your own computer to see it through your own computer, not through my screen projection, because it does make a difference. And the colors and stuff like that. So
Seems a little overexposed in parts.
yeah, parts of it are overexposed. Like it looks like what parts in particular look like they're blown out or not okay.
The sky and the mountains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you look up here, you're seeing a little bit of sky here, but as we go further on, it's getting really like that white sky. We always have this beautiful blue sky in Santa Barbara, but a lot of photos, their sky just looks white, right? Because it's hard for a camera to be able to expose correctly what's in front of them and also get a good sky many times. So over here on the far right, it's beginning to get blown out. Okay. There's some way, this is an example of where I wouldn't say that the exposure here is not right, but here it's not right. So this is an example where a global kind of correction wouldn't work, right? Because if I make everything darker to make this look good, then this will get too dark. So this is an example when you want to isolate one area and another area as far as exposure to be able to make a correction separately, one part from the other. And this is very typical of photos that have much, skies in there or big windows in a room and you're photographing one area and you see the window in the background and it's blown out. You have to do different kinds of adjustments for that. Okay, great. Anything else that comes to mind? So yeah.
It's got a certain amount of haze or feels a little hazy.
Thank you for saying that. Do you guys see that? Do you guys notice how it's a little bit hazy? I was wondering if someone would know that. And it has to do with a couple different things, but it's not purely, it's not sharp in focus. It's one of the one of the reasons that it's a bit hazy, but actually not all of it is not sharp in focus, just some of it is not. What do you see here that is completely sharp and in focus? There is some stuff here that's very sharp and in focus. What is that?
The plane, the propeller.
Anyone else? Carol said the propeller. What else seems in focus?
His elbow.
The
His elbow.
extremely kid. How about that?
What's that?
The extremely cute kid.
Oh, thank you for putting it the right way to get you get an A, you get an A, you get an A. No. All right. Now, more realistically, let me answer that truly none of you have done yet, I think, something that's crucial, which is to be able to see the quality of this image, like as a general exposure, like the comments of light and all of that you said, that's right. You can see it this way. But what happens when you need to look at focus? There's no way you can look at focus of an image or sharpness of an image or the haziness or any of that. That's why I specifically asked you guys about sharpness. If you don't look at this image at 100% magnification or zoom. So let me explain to you what that is. Down here at the bottom left of your screen, head down, there's a tiny little number here. And in my case is saying 50%. And that number will depend on your screen, your resolution, how big you have your window. So you might all have a different number there. Whatever number you have is not good enough. The only number that works for you to be able to see if something is sharp is 100%. So we need to get that to 100%. So one way to get to 100% is to zoom in. And there's so many tools to zoom in, but I recommend no tool. I recommend shortcuts. So if you put your hand, if you're on a Mac, a pure Mac without VDI, then you do the command key. If you're on a PC or on VDI, because on VDI, even if you're using a Mac, it's as if you're on a PC, then you need to use the control key. So it's control, and then you can hit hold down the control or the command key, command for Mac, control for PC. Hold it down with one finger, just keep it held down the whole time. And then let's experiment with hitting the plus sign. And when you do plus, 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 you start kind of moving in. And if I'm looking down there right now, it's at 700%. See how I'm seeing the pixels of the image? And then I'm going to do, I keep held the control down or the command down, and then I hit the minus, 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 and I start going down, okay? And so one of those places that I go down to would be 100%, but now I passed it. So it's control plus, control minus is a good way to zoom in and out. But now, if what I want to do is get to 100%, what I need to do is a shortcut. Just do the control or command and then hit the 1. That zooms it exactly to 100%. So control or command 1 brings you to exactly 100%. Now at 100%, it's the only time that you're able to say, okay, this is or isn't in focus. So now, the problem with 100% is that you don't see the whole image. So you need to be able to scooch around, pan around the image. So again, there's tools for that, but I'm going to try to avoid teaching you the tool because what matters to me is that you learn how to use the shortcuts. And the shortcut is hold down your space bar. And look at how my tool turned into a little hand. I let go of my space bar, it's gone. Hold down my space bar, keep it held down, and I have a hand. So the hand helps me scooch around. I can go up and down when I scooch around my image, okay? Now, by scooching around, I can decide that, well, look at that. The grass, his shorts, it's all very much in focus. I move up, his face, not that much. It's fine, it's not out of focus, but it's a little bit softer, that haze. And as we head down into the background, it gets a bit softer and softer. So it's not tack sharp. It's not out of focus. You know, there's this like real soft out of focus. This isn't, but it's not tack sharp. But actually, I would say that the most sharp thing here is, someone mentioned the elbow, right? And they were totally right. The elbow, his body, that area is pretty tack sharp. His face is almost sharp. Some parts of the airplane are sharp, some are not. It's the grass is sharp. Okay, can you tell the difference between the grass's sharpness here and here? And it's not because it's far away, by the way. I mean, has to do with far away and the length of focus and stuff like that. But meaning this could, something far away could be tack sharp too. You've seen landscapes where the landscape is tack sharp. This isn't because it's far away. It's just because how this photo was taken, the sharpness is focusing on one area of the photo and the rest of the stuff is soft. Now, you couldn't tell whether this was in focus or not. There was no way you could have said that until you went to 100%. Let me give you another example. Let's go back to Bridge. And then here, let's go to this one. The Santi and Joaquin Perry. Do you all see that one somewhere? If anyone is not finding it, let me know. But I went back to Bridge, and it starts with S, Santi and Joaquin over here. Double click on that. If you go down on this one, you can do command minus, or control or command minus. And if when you see it from say 33% right there, so do me a favor, once you've opened it, go ahead and do control minus until you see it, yeah, like 30% or less. And when you look at it like that, okay, so I went control or command minus, depending if you're on a Mac or on a PC. Remember, you Mac users on VDI are on PCs. Control minus. At around 30 or 33%, Does this photo look sharp to you?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks pretty sharp. That is fake. That is because anything that you see from far away looks sharp. If I look at a billboard as I'm driving down the street, it looks sharp to me, but trust me, if you go up to a billboard, those photos are very off and hazy and weird because they're so huge. It's as if I were seeing this at a distance. The zooming is as if I were walking into, I always give the example, imagine a teenager that has many zits walks into the room and you're far away. And I do this in the classroom and I point to the door and everyone looks at the kid and you're like, oh, hi. As that kid approaches, you start noticing that he's a teenager and he's full of zits. You wouldn't have seen that from the entrance. It's because from far away, the person looks sharp to you, but you don't see the details. And as that person starts walking towards you, you go, oh, look at that nice little zit. Whoa, they have a ton of zits, right? As they are really near you, because that's our 100%. So to see whether this focus is in focus or not, this is no good to me. I need to see it at 100%. So controller command 1. And now, what do you think about the focus of this photograph? It isn't not in focus. By the way, there is focus there. But where is the focus? Go ahead and do 100%. And then tell me, where's the focus on this photograph?
On the boy on the right.
On the boy on the right. Yes, thank you for saying boy. You obviously have been in my class long enough. These are my 2 boys, Joaquin and Santi, from eons ago. Now they are 13 and 17. So yeah. Oh, but the focus is on this kid and not even on all of it because some of his hair is also going soft, but there's a very short area of focus. And look at how sharp the little blanket's hairs are down here. His mouth, this area is in focus, but then it slowly gets softer and softer. And then this kid is not sharp. See how this kid is not sharp? So you can have focus. This is a very shallow depth of field where focus is on one thing and not on another that are basically inches apart. This guy is just a little bit further behind and the way the camera is held. Anyway, I don't want to go into all the details of it. By the time you get to the back pillow and these back hairs, they're really out of focus. But look at how sharp the texture of the couch is right here, right? So there's a plane of focus that's kind of following this line, and then anything that's 2 inches or 1 inch deeper starts to be soft, and anything that's 5 inches deeper or 10 inches deeper then is really soft. Okay, you would have never been able to see that had you not been at 100%, okay? Because when this thing is viewed at anything less than 100%, the other kid looks perfectly sharp as well. Even that pillow looks sharp at 33%. I mean, really, go to 33 or something percent, 25%, and even the pillow looks sharp. So, these are photos that are sharp. You can pick up a photo that is not sharp, and immediately you can tell it's not sharp. So say that I go to this little kid and open that one. It's called Noisy. When you open that one, even at 50%, you can tell that his face is not sharp. But even then, if you were to go even smaller, his face never looks very sharp. But at 100%, Control 1, Command 1, he's really, really not sharp. Can you tell the difference? No part of him is sharp. The sharpest it gets is on the beans over here. You see a little bit of texture right here in the t-shirt. That's sharp. That's about. It's still very noisy, by the way. There's something called noisy and sharp, which is different. There's lots of little dots, but the fact that you can see the texture on his t-shirt and those beans, that's the only thing that's sharp. Which in a portrait, that's terrible, because in this portrait, his face needs to be sharp. Okay, so did y'all open this one too? Okay, so if there's one thing that you need to take out from this little exhibition of 2 or 3 photos, is that you can never gauge the quality of an image or the sharpness of an image until you see it at 100%. You can look at the lighting and the color when you're not at 100% clearly. And so down here, up here, hopefully you have 3 photos open right now, and I'm teaching you how to navigate through them. So when I had you go back to Bridge and open this one, that one, and that one, this one's called Noisy. This one's called Santi Joaquin. This was called Straighten. So hopefully you have all 3 open by now. In Photoshop, how you flip through the 3 open photos is you see their names up here on the tab. So this one here was called Straighten. This tab is Santi and Joaquin, and this one is Noisy. Okay, I'm showing you how to handle 3 photos at once open in your program. Go ahead and give me a little yay on the participants button. I haven't had you do that yet. Dorothy takes my other classes. She's trained. She's already yayed it. What I mean by that is make sure your participants buttons turned on by clicking on it. And then give me a little yes, a green yes, if you've got all 3 photos open and you're able to navigate back and forth from all 3 photos and you've been able to zoom in and out to see focus and lack of focus, then say yes. I want to make sure that I'm not leaving anyone behind back there who hasn't been able to do that, because I want you to know how to do this that I'm teaching right now is how to control images, and how to zoom in and out is crucial before we even start fixing a photo. So if you didn't or you need some help, then say no. Give me a little red no. And I know many of you guys are on your second pad, so I'm not expecting everyone to answer, but people who are on their first device, at least you need to answer, okay? So Becky and Owen, I don't see your answers yet. If you need a hand, let me know. Most everyone else has answered. John, I don't see a yay or nay on yours. Okay. All right, so Becky and Owen, what's up with you guys?
Yeah, we
Hello?
got it. But I kind of zoned out. So you wanted us to raise our hand or?
Yes.
No,
yes?
I want you to go to the participants and click yes or no. But I need that. Again, I'm using this as a way to have you guys remember how to do the yay or nay, because as we get into beginning to manipulate photos, then I'm going to start step by step saying, okay, give me a yes if you did it, and I'll move on. So I just, this is my practice yay or nay. I need to know that so I know that everyone's still there. Okay.
Yeah, we've done it from our main machines.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you can answer from any of your machines. I see 3 names, and as long as I see it on one of them, I know that it's a yay. Okay, so then, so you have 3 images open, and you can navigate back and forth through each one of them, and for each one of them, you can go up and down as much as you need. Now, let's choose this one again. And I want you to go Control plus and keep going Control plus as much as necessary. And I'm going to keep going Control plus or Command plus if you're on a PC until you start seeing the pixels. Okay. And then remember, hold your space bar down to turn it into a little hand, and then you can zoom around different parts of the image. So right now it looks like I'm in the mouth. Okay. And you can keep zooming in all up to about, look at 1200% way down there before you can only go up to 3000. So basically each one of these pixels, it would be like the cells of your bodies. Each one of these pixels is, can only hold one color. Even though it might look like some of them have a gradient, it's because your eyes are being tricked because they're going in and out. But you can only hold one color per pixel, and it's the proximity of these pixels to each other and the quantity of different tones that gives us all our details and our shadows and stuff like that. So as you start heading down, Control minus, you can see that shape or whatever it is that you're starting to see start taking shape. So now imagine that this same image is being built by half as many pixels. That mouth would have less detail, wouldn't it? Because the more pixels you have, the more details, for example, in those lips, maybe the lips could have even more little creases, or the skin could have more pores, or if this, you know, or an adult, you could see every little hair of the mustache or something like that. So when you have more pixels, one of the possibilities is that then you would be able to see even more detail. That would mean the camera was able to capture more detail and translate it into even more pixels. And that's why, on the one hand, you might think that the more pixels you have, the better quality of an image. And that is kind of true, but not necessarily something that we can really grasp. There's not necessarily, can you then put it on paper? But if this same image, say for this mouth, maybe right now there's a total of 1,000 pixels. I don't know, I'm inventing. If this same mouth had to be drawn with 500 pixels, something would have to give, it would have less detail. Or if this whole same mouth was drawn by 50 pixels, right? It would still be a mouth, but it would have even less detail. It would just be a mouth, not a mouth with a lot of detail on the lips. So, so how many pixels you have sometimes does affect an image, but there's such a thing as too many pixels. Meaning, if you have more than the amount that you can use to print a photograph, then it just is not something that we humans on paper can ever represent, right? So there's a limit to what a printer, how many dots a printer can drop of ink to show you that detail. So when you have an image that has bazillions of dots per inch and your printer can only print 300 dots per inch, for example, then that's as good as you're going to see it. You're not going to see every single one of those pixels represented by a dot of ink on your paper. Okay, so we're limited by the technology of the printers, which, by the way, they're getting better and better. There's technology now that allows you to see more than those 300 pixels per inch. But right now, what matters is that if this photograph is going to be printed, now let me back off until you see the whole thing. If this photograph is going to be printed for you to be able to see all the detail in that airplane or grass or mouth or wherever it is that you were zoomed into, then you need to have enough pixels that every 1 inch of this photograph should have about 300 pixels per side of that inch. So say you want to print this as a 4x6. So imagine imaginary lines here, turning this into 1, 2, 3, 4 inches, right? And this into 6 inches. Just imagine those lines. Then 1 inch of this image, say, would be about yay big. One side of that inch would need to have about 300 pixels defining that grass or defining those shorts for those to look sharp in a photograph. Does that make sense? So how do we know how many pixels this photograph has on its side? How many pixels does this photograph have per side? Does anyone know how to find that out?
In Bridge, it tells you.
One way is in Bridge. So let's go back to Bridge. So go down to the tab that has Bridge and single click, okay, the photograph. You're not trying to open it. And then when you single click that photograph, and you can put your mouse on these columns to make them bigger, on the metadata over here, that's one place where you can find. And what this is telling me is that this photograph is 3,264 by 2448. That's pixels. That means that this entire side of the image has a total of 3,264 pixels, that whole side. and that the short side, the tall side, has 2448 pixels. That's what that number is. Those little pixels we just saw, that's how many the entire side of this photo has. Okay. So now, if I needed to print this, imagine it as a 4x6. So say we needed to divide this number into 6 inches, right? So if, like me, you're not into math, Photoshop will do these, calculations for you. But some of you might have a calculator there, or you might be good at it. Any idea how many, if you divide 3264 by 6, what number do we get? I'm going to go use a calculator outside of the image that I'm sharing with you, but
544.
What's that?
544.
544. So if I divide this into 6 inches, each inch will have 544 pixels. Does that make sense? You're just dividing what you've got by the size you want to print this. So 544 pixels. Is that more than 300? I'm just seeing if you're awake, because that's an obviously easy question to answer.
Yes.
Yeah, right? So that means that if I try to print this image as 4x6, I will do great. I will have an image that prints at full quality. Okay. So right now, that calculation is unnecessary. If you open it in Photoshop and do it in Photoshop, it'll do it for us. But if you go down to the metadata, it's telling me dimensions in inches, 45 inches by 34 inches. See those numbers there? Wait a minute. This 45 inches big? Well, it's only possible because that number is being calculated based on the photo's resolution being 72 pixels per inch. So what it's telling me is that if I get 3264 divided by 72, then I'm able to get 45 inches of this photograph. But will that photograph print well at 72 PPI? No. It has to be at least 300. Now, especially if you read the handout, and Becky said she and Owen read it and she immediately said, no, I saw her face, because people who do their homework know the answers. You need at least 300, and in certain situations or exceptions, you can have less. So you could have, yes, Marie, you're raising.
Yeah, my metadata isn't showing up in the bridge.
Okay, so it's possible that you have your bridge set up in some other view and not essentials. And
No,
if you do have it in it, did you
Essentials,
select?
yeah. Yes.
Go down, go to this little arrow and reset your workspace, and maybe it'll pop up.
Okay.
And
Will
then
do.
if it still doesn't, then I'll have to see your screen. You have to,
Reset standard workplace.
yes. Mhm.
Oh, there it is. Thank
There
you.
it is. You're welcome. So now you have your metadata. So the metadata is really important for us to be able to know things from before we even open it, right? So at 72 PPI, that means 72 pixels per inch. So if you only want 72 pixels, then this photo could actually stretch out to being 45 inches long. But at 300 PPI, we would be able to print it out probably more like, I don't know, 8x10 or something like that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Okay, so that's why you can't trust the number, dimensions, and inches without reading the resolution. These two need to go hand in hand. They don't mean anything otherwise. Okay, now at 72 PPI, you could put it on screen, but you could not print it. All right, so that's information we got out of Bridge. There's much more to get out of Bridge, but as far as resolution as inches. So now let's go back to Photoshop. That same information you can find in Photoshop in two ways. One way is way down here, next to the 50% or 100% or whatever percentage you're looking at. I have a number here. It's 3264 by 2448 pixels. If your Photoshop is set up like mine, that's what you're seeing. If you have your own Photoshop, you might have changed this. See this arrow? You could be looking at something else. You could be looking at, I don't know, timing, and the number is different. Or you could be looking at, 32-bit exposure, or all that kind of, just whatever stuff is here. So this one is the document size, refers to the weight of that image, how big that file is, okay? And that used to be what you saw first for eons in Photoshop. But now they give you the options, and I believe what comes up right now is document dimensions is the default. So you can change what you see. So if you don't see what I'm seeing, then go to document dimensions, and that's where you can see the pixels of this image. All right, everyone found that? Okay. The other place you can see that and work with it and change it is in the image size box. So go to image, image size. Okay, so I went up to this top layer of tools, image, image size. And once you see that box, this is the one that you see in all the handouts. This is where we can manipulate that information. Okay, so I can go in and out. And the thing is that this box can be made smaller or bigger. Whoa, hello. My hand, I can make it smaller, so I see only a little preview, or I can grab the corner and make it much bigger, depending on how much of the image I want to see. And I actually probably want to see quite a bit of it to be able to tell. So here's where we have the fact that it tells me that I have 45-inch across and 34-inch across based on 72 PPI. So now let's make this more realistic. And the most important box here that you can ever care about is this one. This is so important that you need to, like, if you could sear it onto your foreheads, the resample image. If this is on, it means one thing. If this is unchecked, it means another thing. And it is hugely different what happens. If it's checked, like now, then you could potentially completely destroy your image. It's a very important understanding you need to have of this checkbox, because this could be the end of your whole photograph if you change anything else with this on. So the safe setting is to turn it off to start with. Okay, so first you want that off. If this is on, as this name implies, you are resampling. If this is off, you are resizing. So off means resizing, on means resampling. All right, I'll tell you the differences between one and the other, but resample and resize are so different that it's important. First of all, look at what happens here. If I resample, these two are connected, but resolution is not. If I take off and I'm resizing, then all three are connected. So to be safe with what we're going to do now, I need to make sure that all three of these numbers are connected and that is off. Okay. So if I said it enough, make sure that you know that. Now let's investigate what's up here. This is telling me that my image size is 22 megabytes. That's how big my file is. But the numbers that matter to me are how many pixels I have, and here they are. So now I've said that this is not printable at 72. So I need to go in there and say, to print it, what number do I need to type in there?
300.
300. And notice that when I type the number 300, this shifted. And instead of 34, now it's telling me 1088, basically 9 pixels by 8 inches. It's basically 9 by 11-ish, okay? Or 8 by 11. Yeah? 1088 by 816, because I have told it, okay, what if you only pack 300 pixels in an inch? That's the size you get. Now, notice that these are connected. So if I shift this and tell it that I want, 2000 pixels in an inch, well, given that I only had 3000 total, it telling me, well, then you're going to get 1.5 inch out of that. Does that make sense? How many pixels you choose to pack in 1 inch, because this means pixels per inch tells you how big of a print you can get. Now, let's say that you don't want any of that. What you know is what the frame size you have. You have a frame that's 5 by 7. So instead of using resolution, you go by something you know, which is, I want to put this photo in a 5 by 7. So you select the width and you go 7. Well, then it'll tell you that, yeah, it's not going to be fit perfectly at 5 by 7. It's going to be 5.25. You're going to have to cut a little bit off. And you'll end up having 466 pixels in that inch. Okay? Too many pixels is not a problem. Too few is. So if you have 466 pixels in the inch, well, so be it. That's fine. It's not going to look much better than the 300 pixels per inch if you just have a regular, inkjet printer, or you take it to Costco or something like that. 300 is all that's needed. You would have to have a very fancy, modern, special printer that you probably couldn't have at home yet unless you paid many thousands of dollars for more than 300 to make a difference. Professional printers with new kinds of, thermal sensor imaging and stuff like that are able to take advantage of some more pixels. But there's also the point of what point do humans able to distinguish many more pixels and see one photo as being better than another when you can put more than 300 pixels in there. But anyway, so this is how you manipulate the size of your photograph for print. Only for print. This is only for print. And the most important thing about this is that nothing has changed. I haven't affected my photograph by changing these things. All I've changed is the dimensions that this will print at. Let me show you that. Okay, everyone, you set it at 7 by 5? Let's say okay. Nothing has changed at all. If I look down here, it still says 364 by 24, except for now it says 466 PPI versus before it said 72 PPI. If I look at the rulers in my image, which you might not have turned on, I have my rulers turned on all the time. My rulers are set in pixels, so my pixel numbers here is on. So if you don't have the rulers turned on, you can say Control or Command R, or you can go up to View and turn on rulers. Put on your rulers. Command R, Control R, or View Rulers. That's how you turn on the rulers. My rulers are always on. And if I notice over here, my ruler is set in pixels. So it's showing me how many pixels I have. But just for the fun of this, let's change that ruler. So put your mouse in the ruler and do a right click. Do a right click and let's change that ruler to inches. Aha! Someone who never heard of that just heard of that.
Must be me.
Yeah.
I'd always go to preferences.
I love teaching people things that they've been using Photoshop forever and they never knew. So you put your mouse in the ruler and right click and you can change if it's going to be in different methods. And so change it to inches. Now it's saying that it's 7 inches wide. Is that working for you guys? Has everyone got this? Give me a little yay if you're following through with the whole ruler conversation. And here it's 5 1/4. All right.
Yeah, we missed that. Can you explain how to get there again?
How to get to
Okay.
the ruler.
Put
How
your,
to get into the ruler.
so how to get the ruler, you can say View Rulers and you have to check mark. But other than that, put your mouse tip in the ruler and right click. And that gives you the choice to go.
You have to do view.
View.
All right. So now let's go into image. Images. Oh, by the way, I was going to do something here. Don't do this piece because I don't want y'all printing stuff unless you want, but it's not worth printing this. But I'm going to do a preview of this image. And the preview is, I just said command print, right? Or control print. This is a 5, usually this comes up as an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, right? Is the default setting for my printer. And so, yes, this is about 7 by 5. That makes sense, right? If I were to print this, this would print out as about a 7 by 5 picture, right? So I'm going to cancel because I'm not going to print. Now let's go back to image size. And let's say that I want to print this as a 2 by 1.5. It's going to be like a little wallet photograph, a little grandparent grad photo or something. So I have a 2 by 1.5. The resolution's crazy big, but I said too much is not a problem. So basically what I just did, guys, again, is I went to image size, and I'm going to change, this needs to stay off, remember, I'm going to change the width. I want to print a 2-inch image. So then by default, the height's going to be 1.5. So I'm going to say okay. And if I look at my rulers, there it is. I've changed it to a 2 by 1.5. And I go print, and I did the shortcut before, but if you go file, print, command or control P, there's my 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and there you go, my little 2 by 1.5 print that's going to be printed. You see that? So with the image size, I can change the size of the photo I'm going to print. I'm going to cancel because I'm not going to print. One last time to image size. As long as you have this turned off and these connected, you can do this as many times as you want. Now, what if instead I wanted this to print at 300 PPI? It's telling me I can get a 10 by 88. What if I have a frame that's a 16 by 20? You know, I have a big frame. I want this in the middle of my living room. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want it to be 20 by 16 or 20 by 15. Here's when I'm running into problems, right? Because in order to print something that big, each one of my inches will only have 162 pixels. That's it. I can't add pixels to this image. Whatever it's got, it's got. So what's going to happen with this image? Is it going to be a good print?
No.
No. Photoshop will happily do it. I said, okay, here's my 20 by 15. And in fact, if I try to print, it's showing me just a little bit of it, and see how I can move it around in my 8.5 by 11. You know, it's basically only able to print a little bit because 20 by 16 is much bigger than 1.5 by 11. So the photo did change, and it's looking like it'd print okay. It doesn't show me it's going to be bad quality here, right? But you need to know that if you look down here and it says PPI, anything under than 300, or, you know, 250 minimum, then you shouldn't be printing it. This conversation has to do with print and only with print, okay? We're going to be talking in another class about what happens if you go to screen. But I just want to make sure that this is clear, that when you're going to print, you can manipulate it all with the image size and making sure this is off, then, and that you have at least 300 in here, then you're safe. That's as big as I can do this photograph if I want it to be high quality image. So I'm going to leave it at that number now in my final okay. basically I've just put 300 PPI in there so that that's what it says. Before we
I'm so
continue,
sorry.
so sorry, what happened?
When I, s-
Oh, you're talking to someone else. That's okay. Well, I'm glad you're sorry.
sorry about that. I didn't know I was sorry.
That's
I was
fine.
apologizing to my husband for making a mistake.
No problem. Hey, better that than it's your fault. All right, good. So guys, here's the thing. Let's take a break. If anyone has any questions about this, ask me now. Otherwise, we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, I had a question. It
Yeah.
took me a while to get into ruler mode, and then I'm in ruler mode now. What do we do in that, or?
Okay, so the only thing about the ruler was that it's showing you every time I change an image size, the size of my image, then you can see it expressed here in the ruler. So right now, the last change I made turned it into a 300 PPI image, which means that the most I can get out of it is about 11 by, and if I look at the ruler, by 8 over here, inches. I'm reading the ruler there. If I go to image size, and actually I only want to print a 3 by 2, and I say, okay, image, then there it is. The inches are telling me that my image right now is 3 inches wide. I'm just manipulating with that tool, manipulating my pixels, kind of stretching them. Think of chewing a gum. I always say, I have one piece of gum in my mouth, and I can make it into a tight little ball where I get a tight packed little bit of gum. With the same amount of gum, I can with my tongue stretch it out and make it into a big, flabby, flimsy thing. But I haven't changed how many pixels I have or how much gum I put in my mouth, right? So you just manipulate, you stretch, or you change how many pixels you pack into each one of those inches. But the amount of pixels you started with is exactly the same. And that's what we're doing. We're manipulating that number with this tool, with the image size tool, in order to pack those pixels tight and give me a 3-inch image. What's that?
Okay, thanks. We have it now.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back to leaving it at 300. So now if there's no more questions about this, then let's take our break.
Deanna,
Yes.
should you do all your cropping before you do this part?
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes and no. Hold on. Right now, we're just talking about the tool, but I haven't really even fixed any of the cropping or the straightenings or anything on this image. So we're going to do that next, because once we do straighten this, you'll notice that the image will be smaller. So yeah, you first need to get your final image before you print. If you were to print this because it's ready to go, then that's what you can get out of it. After we end up straightening this image, we'll have less area of image to print. So you shouldn't be deciding what to print until you have it ready to go. So yeah, we would do that at the end.
Thank you.
The conversation here that I was having is for people to begin to understand the whole pixel conversation. But yeah, we're not ready to print this image yet. So we would wait. We would definitely wait. Any other question before we get going? All good questions. So that was great. All right, so let's take a break. It's 10:40. So I'll see you guys at 10:55. But be ready to go. So come in back earlier so that at 10:55, I don't have to wait for people to come back. So come back at 10:53. All right. I'm muting you all so you can make all the noise you want in the background, and that's fine. It's up to you. You don't need to disconnect. I've already silenced you. All right, I'm back, just kind of making noise to see if everyone slowly comes home. Oh, sorry, I'm yawning. So I'm gonna come back. It's not time yet, but just if I figure if I
Slowly
start
coming back.
speaking like the Pied Piper, I start making noise and I start and bringing you back into the fold. Yeah, so let's connect my phone here. All right, so while we wait for the actual close that group to get together. Any questions about the last stuff that I just shared? Things that you thought of that you went, yeah, but when I do it, you know, comments like that? Anyone? Nope.
Yeah. Yes, Carol.
What's
Before taking Photoshop and you weren't looking at PPIs,
Mhm.
most of us just take our stuff to Costco to get it printed up.
Yes.
And we get a print. So a little confusing about that part.
Yeah. Great question. Costco, all the places that you send things on, you know, online, or I think I don't know CVS, but there's other places like that that you can take photos to they just print them. They know that people don't know any of this, right? So they know that people give them the photo that came out of their camera, right? And so photos that come out of a camera by default are set at 72 PPI. If you ever go to any photo that you just took and open it in Photoshop, it'll be at 72 PPI, right? Meaning it's not right for print, supposedly, from what I just told you. But all of these companies, when they receive the photo from you, they convert it to 300 and then they print it. Have you ever noticed that when you print a photo, there's always going to be either a bit missing from the side or it missing from the top, depending if it's long or short? And it's because in order to give you that 4x6 or 5x7 or whatever you're buying, or 8x10, whatever you got ordered, the format photos don't fit into any of those photos. Those are formats that are, the frames exist that way, but photographs, the camera does not take that format. It never does. So you're always going to have to cut a little bit or to have an extra piece of white, right? So all these companies, they automatically do that for you. They automatically choose what to cut. And if you notice, at least I know in Costco, I've used that every time my mom comes before she leaves, we print a batch of photos of her trip here. I do it at Costco. And if you go into that little, if you just give them the photos, they do it for you automatically. But they have a tool online where you can say, well, I want it cropped this way and not that way, right? And you can like move things around, even at Costco. And then they print them, and then they don't cut the head off, they cut the feet out, whatever you chose to cut off, but you choose, right? But their tool converts the 72 to 300. So they do it anyway, but they do it in a different mode. Every program, no matter which, that you work with will do the conversion. So it's not a Photoshop thing. I'm just teaching you how to manipulate it yourself. But if you own Photoshop and you try to print out of your own printer, this is what you need to do to get a photo to be the size you want it to be, okay? And if this photo is going to go, say, into a brochure, and it's going to be, you know, brochures are like that, and your photo is going to be yay big, so it ends up being about 3x4, then you want to put the photo in that size before you put it in the brochure to have it be the right size, right? So this is when you're working at it on a personal level for your own printer, or because you're professionally working on it, putting it into material like books, brochures, websites, pages, where you need to know how to manipulate it yourself. But just for the good old, you know, 4x6 print, 5x7, 8x10, if you do nothing else, Costco will print it as it came with all of its flaws or no flaws, but it will get it into the It won't do anything else, but it will get it into the 300 PPI mode. If you ever give them a photo that's not big enough, because say you downloaded it from the internet, and we're going to talk a bit more later about screen images, but we're not going to continue in that today. If you download a photo from the internet straight from how it was printed on a website, it's not big enough to print because they're set up for very small screen resolution, for example, 72 or others. And if you try to print that, you get a blurry mess. So when you upload something like that to Costco, they just come back with can't print, and they just don't print it for you because they don't have enough resolution. So that's the way they deal with it. Okay.
Thank you.
What do you guys, does anyone still print their photos, by the way? Who
I
prints
do.
photos?
I've got a small
No.
printer.
Okay, so you print them yourself in your own house? How many still go to like Costco or printer places for printing, a stack of photos like we used to? Okay, so proportionally, give me some yay so I have an idea of proportional. A lot of people don't print stuff anymore. They might print one awesome picture, but you know how we used to take a roll of pictures and get 12, 24, 36 came back, right?
Yeah.
Is anyone still, say you have a birthday party and then you print maybe 10, not I'm going to say everything anymore because you can choose, but do you print 10 photos of that party or 10 photos of your vacation and put it in an album? How many people are still doing that?
I print photos frequently, but I print them on a glassy surface, and I have collections of photos and we have lots of wall space. So I print them often for that. And occasionally people have asked me for copies of those pictures. So I do print them, but not little pictures, just the big things. That
So look at behind Marie's background. Look at all the photos she has in her background down there. So she also prints and hangs in frames, right? I'm assuming by the little glimpse that I'm seeing. And Marie gets all her photos and does these amazing collages. You should share some of your pictures here at some point someday, or even send me some prints and I can share them. But she does these fantastic. Oh, there's one. So there's a whale and a butterfly. And so that's one of her, Photoshop compositions. She does greeting cards with them. Anyway, so there's all these different ways you use the photos, but very few people say, I went to a birthday party and I take pictures, and you print 10 pictures anymore, right?
Right.
Like Suzanne said, you choose one that you really like, you work on it, and you print that one. So when you do that, then that becomes even more important now to know how to process that one that you're going to print, or the 3 that you're going to print, and make them look really good, because you're probably going to make it bigger. You're probably going to put it in the wall or in a frame, or it's going to be a gift or something like that, right?
Yeah, I do a collage of, I've been on hundreds of trips, and I do a collage of every single trip, with my husband and I in one picture, and photos that I liked, and I put the date and where it was as the title of the picture, and I have these albums full of them, which I'm sure my kids will just dump in the trash when I'm gone.
Hey, but it's your life, right?
but I really like doing the collage things instead of looking at 300 pictures, even on the screen of a trip.
Yeah, I love that idea.
I like doing that.
I love that idea. I have this ongoing battle. I'm the photographer in the house, and I take a lot of pictures, and yet we don't have a lot of pictures on our walls, right? Ever since so we have albums from the pre-digital era. And then ever since the digital era, when my mother-in-law was alive, at the end of the year, I'd make a calendar with collages and images and all this stuff. And so we had one per year. But then ever since I don't do that for her anymore, since she passed away, our goal is to put together a little book, print a little book of each trip we have or something like that, right? And even that is almost too much to happen because I haven't done it for many years. So I'm thinking I'm going to do a collage of every trip now. I like that idea. Bring it down to the favorite sets. All right. So anyway, so most of the times the way we manipulate photos right now is more specific. We take a photo we really love and we really make it really good to print a really good image, or to put it in some, book material, PowerPoint presentation. We do it for business, things that we're selling. I mean, there's all these other useful reasons why we need photos. But it isn't so much the massive set of prints, which I still do it. My mom stays here a few months. I take a ton of photos during those few months, and then I send her home with a stack of 4x6s of the trip, because that's how she then likes to put them in an album and see them all the time. So there's, you know, there's still place for all the different options. So now let's go back to this image in Photoshop. Let me start sharing again. My screen.
Deanna,
Yes.
in the bridge, I accesses metadata and whole screen filled up, and I don't know how to get rid of it.
Say that again. You accessed the metadata and it filled your screen.
Yeah, with
Metadata.
metadata.
So over here, there's all these different settings that you could be in. One of them up here is just metadata like that.
Yeah.
Either way, find the essentials. And if in the essentials it's still not there, then you have to reset. Go to the little arrow and reset your workspace, or
Oh, I
reset
think I'm
standard
good.
workspaces, and then it goes back to the basic setup. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. If you do that, you need to re-expand, because it ends up kind of small when you reset, and then just give it the
Right,
big
right.
expand again. Okay. Oh, looks like I looks like I closed Photoshop. Why did I close Photoshop? That's weird. I don't remember closing Photoshop, but it looks like it's closed. So I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to open
mine
this.
closed by itself a while ago. I wasn't sure if I did something wrong.
Huh.
And
I'm thinking
weird.
because we're on VDI, if it's unused, it self-closed or
Yeah,
something.
it
and we were-
does. VDI does close.
That's
if you
it was
don't
interesting.
weird. The VDI, the Photoshop closed, but not
Bridge.
Not
Bridge.
Bridge,
And then
yeah.
later,
Not Bridge.
VDI did close.
How interesting. Okay, well, let's open Straighten again for those of us from whom it did close, because it closed for me and I know I didn't close it. Now, had we had something happening in our photos, it would have asked us whether we wanted to save or not, but we hadn't really done any big changes, and so it didn't have to ask. But even then, no, I had, you know what? I had made some changes here. I had moved it to 300. So that closed without saving my changes. No, there it is. It went back to my, oh, look at that. Look at what it did. Photoshop. This is a VDI thing. Photoshop closed without asking me. So when I opened the file again, it opened the file, but it opened another one called Straighten Recovered, which is the one that Photoshop saved for me with my changes, and which was just a size change. How interesting. Wow. Okay, well, I don't need the Straighten Recovered because we didn't really do anything very important in it. So let's go. If you did get something like that as well, then click and get rid of Straighten Recovered. Save changes, say no. And then let's just start with the basic Straighten again. Okay, so there's much more to the conversation of resolution and print and not print and what happens to the file size. So today was, many times, sometimes I spend all class on something or another. I just wanted to do a few more things to this photo and take the whole resolution conversation over the next few weeks. So read, those of you who haven't, read those handouts so that so you get more out of it, because by reading them, I'm going to explain it, but by reading those handouts, then you can ask deeper questions, because the basic stuff you already understand, and you can go deeper in to the questions that I'm posing. All right. Okay. So now let's go ahead and deal with, Peggy's last question, which is, well, why are we doing this now? It's not ready to print. And yes, definitely first need to fix this photo before we can print it. Now, I particularly picked this photo because sometimes when you straighten something, you're not aware of what gets lost. But this one is one that's very obvious, because if you look at what's happening right now, we have all the lights of this park in this one corner here. We have, the end of the sky, which is kind of bad and blah and out of overexposed, right? So notice, it's easy, it's noticeable. Sometimes at corners of photos, a lot of grass or a little bit of grass, you can't notice the difference, but here you can. That's why this one is a good one to explain the cropping mechanism. So the cropping tool here on the bottom, on the toolbar is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish tools down. It's also something you can pull up by clicking the C. And the only thing I like about this little tooltip is when you hover over the tooltip, it shows you what's the shortcut. If I just hit the C key on my keyboard, right, for crop, then I go straight to the cropping tool without having to click on it. So I'm going to be over here. My mouse hasn't moved, and all I do is hit C, and the cropping tool, as you can see, has been chosen. So instead of having to click on a tool and click on a tool and click on a tool, there's shortcuts for these tools that are many times the same as their names. So say that I want to go to the type tool right now. Instead of having to go with my mouse all the way to the type tool, I can just hit the T. And when I hit the T, I've gone to the type tool. So it's just the key, nothing else. No other things to press, just the T. If I want the zoom tool without the shortcuts that I showed you, I hit the Z, and there I'm on my zoom tool, et cetera, et cetera. So hit the C to go to your crop tool. Many times, you know, B for brush, C for crop, T for text. So many times they're very obvious. The only one that's not so obvious, and I want you guys to always know really well, because whenever you're outside one of these weird tools, you always want to be in the home tool right there, that tool. And that's called the move tool. And the move tool, as opposed to M, because M is the marquee tool, the move tool is the V for move, move. So V sends us back to the home or move tool. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go to the C for the crop tool. And when you're in the crop tool, obviously the first thing that's wrong with this image is that it needs to be straightened. And there's two ways to straighten an image. So I'm going to show you both. One way is just you moving it. And so look at my mouse. Here's my mouse. Don't click with these things. When you have any of these tools, you don't want to click until you're ready to do something. So don't just click around. Just I'm going to put my mouse out here. I don't know if you see it. I move it out. It's kind of dark, so I don't know if you see it. Let me put the spotlight thing on, which is uncomfortable to use, but I think it shows my tool. There we go. So when I move my tool out here, it turns into this little double-headed arrow. And when I click, a little grid shows up supposedly to help me. And then I can move by hand, like to the right or to the left, and I can try to guess where I think it's straight. And when I let go, then that's kind of done the move, right? So now I'm going to do that again. I'm going to hit escape, the escape tool, to get out of that and try that again. So the one way to use the straightening tool is by moving outside into this dark area. But let me actually say that you had zoomed in and you were like that, where you don't see the outside area, right? If you go to the crop tool, so well, there's a problem here, right? Because you can't go outside. Does that make sense? The crop tool doesn't allow that. So if you are in this mode where you are too big, you do have to go control minus, 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 so that you can see some black stuff, okay? And then you can go in, and as you click, you can do your little straightening by hand, you know, deciding where you think it's good. And then when you get there, notice what happened to the image. This one is so off, it's so crooked, that a whole bunch of photo has to be cropped out for me to be able to straighten it. I used to have, you could see his shorts. Now I only see a little bit. We used to see those lights up there, and now you only see a little stick. In order to achieve this crop, I've got to throw a lot of photograph away. Does that make sense? So this is showing you what goes in and what goes out. And you'd say, well, but how come all this got cropped? And it's in order to let that little bit of green in there be, then you have to crop all that out. Okay, so if I like this crop, and no, I don't matter if you like yours or not, just to show you how to finish this process, then you can either hit that little check mark up there, or I like to just use hitting my return or enter key. Hit your return or enter key, And that's saying, yes, I got it. I like my crop. And you hit the return or enter, or you hit that check mark, and now you've cropped your image.
Deanna,
Yes.
it's Linda.
Yeah.
Your grids were very, very small. Mine were a lot bigger. How do you change that?
I'll show you that. And there's
You will,
so much
okay.
more to this tool. I'm going to go back off and
Perfect.
show you many more things. This is like just the quick one-ish way. But yeah, you can change your grids. You can, I prefer straightening a different way. So I'm going to show you a different way to straighten. But this is a very quick little, you know, twist and hit return, and you kind of got it. You're not much in control of what's around, rather what fits is what got cropped. And so as you can see, I have no more top lights here for this light. Okay. And I seem to have cropped off some of that bad stuff because this doesn't look so overexposed anymore. The bad stuff stayed out here. The other thing I want to show you about this, and be careful because you're still in the crop tool. So don't use your key, don't use your mouse for anything. You're getting weird places. But something else I want to show you that's very important that happened is that the default crop setting does something that I don't actually like, which is that the default crop setting had a check mark by default on delete cropped pixels. Okay. So if you do nothing else than what we just did, what has just happened is that everything else that was in the image just got completely deleted. Deleted as in gone. In fact, look, if I choose my move tool and try to move this around, and I'm gonna, actually you can't do that yet, but where my layers go, hold on. Don't try this because you have to do something, but if I move it around, it's truly gone. See how I have nothing there? Okay, so I'll show you how to do this in a minute, but right now I'm not focused on that. I just wanted to see it's gone. That delete crop pixels truly got rid of everything. And that's probably not what I truly would want to do. To do non-destructive modifications, unless you're sure, like you have a trash can next to the baby and you really know you'll never want that trash can there, crop it out and leave it out, that's fine. For the most part, there's always some redeeming factor in something that's there. So I don't like getting rid of crop pixels unless I really need to. There's also different ways to handle grids and how to handle the straightening. So let us go backwards. Let's use the history tool, which is this top tool on the right, that little backwards arrow. Click on that. And it shows us the steps of what we've done. Let's click back to the very top thumbnail, and that brings us back to the very beginning. So all our changes are gone. Let me know if you're with me. Let me know if you've managed to do a crop and then go up to the history and get rid of your crop. So if you manage to do that, if you manage to find your history, then all we're doing is we're clipping on the very beginning to just go all the way back to the very first mode. When you have this little thing open and you don't want it anymore, you can click on this again for it to get out of the way, for it to go away. All right. Does anyone, there's more to explain. So I'm not saying that you don't have any more questions, but of the steps I did, were you able to do it and get out of it? Okay.
Diana, I can't find the history.
Okay,
Thing
so
is
if the history is not here for you, you can go up to Window and turn on History, and it's going to pop up for you.
Okay, great, thanks.
And then you can pop it off again.
Deanna,
Yes?
I don't see detailed cropped pixel and
Delete crop pixel. You need to be in the crop tool, and then you'll see it up here. It's possible that you already had it off, but you don't see it at all. I mean, you need, if you're in the crop tool here,
yep.
you don't see the option to delete crop pixels.
No.
If you have your screen very small, and I'm wondering because the tools do compress, so sometimes if you have the tools, you know, your window is very tiny, see how things kind of compress. So right now it only says delete, and things kind of change up on top when you make your window very small. So see if that might be it. And if not, then if none of it works, then I'll ask you to share your screen.
Yeah, I think that better.
Okay, so let me stop my share. Go ahead and share yours. Mira's and others of my classes, and I really appreciate people who start sharing, become really good at sharing quickly. See, so it takes 2 seconds. Let me see. You have that little icon up on top. Click on that. No, instead of having the words in yours, you just have the icon. So do you see the one that, yeah, that one, click on that. Let me hover over the tooltip. Let me see what it says. Move away and put your finger on it again. Yeah, hover over it again. Let me what it says. Determine if pixel data outside the crop is retained or deleted. Wow, that's a long explanation, but basically that's your delete crop pixels or not. So if it's black, that was on. And now that it was, so when you click on it, right now it's unclicked. See that? Versus if you click.
I see the garbage can.
Yeah. So if it's on, you're deleting them, which is dark. And if you click on it again and it goes gray, then you're not deleting them. I don't know why they eliminated the words, the simple delete crop pixels, but there you go. They did. So it's interesting that we're both on VDI using the same version. This is why I never signed up at Photoshop, and yet the same tools are showing up differently. And you do have an expanded screen. So that's where it always throws me for a loop. Why does, many times it's your version is different than mine, but we are both on VDI. So we're using the same version. So I don't know why the same tool shows up differently. Okay.
But I could, huh?
So can you stop sharing now, please? All right.
Diana?
Yes?
I'm sorry, I'm still not able to delete what we just did.
Okay, so did you go into your history? Did you find your history?
I did the history, and then it comes up with this little box, and there was a garbage can on the bottom corner, and when I click it, it does, nothing happens. I just,
yeah, no, we don't want garbage can. We don't want garbage can. That's a whole different thing. If you were here in the cropped mode that you were before, you need to go up to the top choice and click on that. And that's going backwards in your history.
We can't see your screen.
Oh,
Deanna.
sorry. Thank you. Share my screen again. And there we go. So when you're in history, that little trash can, that's not what we need. We need to back up, like go up the ladder and hit that little guy over there, which is the very beginning step. And that's how you back up. You could also go from crop where we were in just to open, which is also the beginning step, but that's a clean way to start it. Did that work, Lisa? Lisa?
yeah, I mean, I see all of that, but when I click on it, my computer just chimes and nothing happens. I can't get out of it.
Okay, so how about you share your screen? Let me see what's happening. Oh, you are, huh? Yeah, you're not out of it. You click again on straighten. It's not going back. How bizarre. What's not, you're in your own version of Photoshop. Oh, duh. Okay. No, look, you didn't commit your crop yet. You didn't make your crop happen. There's nothing to undo. You flipped it, but you didn't yet do the check mark. So your crop hasn't happened yet. You're still in the I'm about to make my crop mode. Do you see that? Up at the very top, you have a check mark, and you either have to hit the check mark or you have to hit the return key to make the crop actually happen. So up at the, where you see history, go on the top, there's a, yeah, right there, a little bit higher up to your left, there's a check mark.
Oh, you know, what's in the way is the toolbar for Zoom, where it says.
Oh, okay. So then stop sharing, and you'll see right under there. You'll see a check mark. You need to check mark it, and the crop to first happen. Then you can undo it. So you guys, when you're in the middle of the crop tool, without that having been checked, then you're still in the up and down. You can still keep twirling it around. You need to have it finally happen before you can undo something to happen. Okay, and that's the kind of thing that I can't tell until I see the screen, right? So that's why I need you to be good at sharing.
That worked. Thank you.
All right, so any other questions before I share my screen again?
Yes, Deanna, I'm not sure where
Yeah.
I'm at in the screen. Can I share and let you know what's
Yes, of
going on?
course.
Okay. Shoot.
We're almost done with class time, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
show you a couple more things and then hit the big green share screen button. Sometimes it's hiding under more. Okay, so you're in the same situation. You still have a check mark up there. If you have a check mark up there, that means you have not committed your crop yet.
Okay, gotcha.
So you either have to hit the forbid, which is cancel and not do the crop, or you have to go back in time in time in your history. Okay, now you can undo your crop. You have two different crops that you made. You can undo them both by going up to the image size. Yeah, if you hit that one, then that's before your crops.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Uh-huh.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm glad both of you shared that, because that is an important point. There's many tools that nothing happens until you actually commit. So if I'm still in this mode, right, and I'll go into other details there, as long as I have that check mark there, that means that I can keep moving it. I can decide to do this or that or keep changing. I haven't decided yet what my crop is going to be. I'm not in crop mode yet. Until I hit that check mark, the crop didn't happen, and then I go, whoops, that didn't work, and then I can undo it. Okay, but you can't undo something that's not yet been done, and that's the check mark. Or I prefer to hit the return key, which is equivalent to hitting the check mark. It basically commits that crop. You've actually put your scissors to paper. So everyone, if you've managed to undo whatever you've done, let me show you really quickly. First of all, I like to delete crop pixels before I crop. Okay, so I turn this off. Second of all, a couple of you guys wanted to know about grids, and this little icon that looks like a little grid, that's where you change the different kind of grids. But wait a little minute on that, because I want to show you first something else. I want to show you a different way to straighten, and then after that I'll let you play with the crop tool on your own and have questions after next week. But here's the straighten. Okay, so if you back in the crop tool, for those of you left it, click on that little, like it's a level, like a carpenter's level. Okay, click on that tool. Nothing much seems to have happened, but look at my mouse. My mouse looks like a little level carpenter's tool right now. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So the part of this icon that matters is that X, okay? That's the center point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a line across where I think should be a straight line, basically the horizon. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna say from here, and I'm gonna drag to here. This should be a level line. When I let go, my computer created that straightening based on what I decided needed to be straight. Does that make sense? I'm gonna hit escape to get out of that mode now again. And basically you turn on this tool and say that you wanted this whole thing corrected to the line of the airplane. I could click from here. Okay, so I'm gonna click on the straighten and I'm gonna click and drag, so don't let go of your click, along this line. Boom. Now the computer has made this line be what's straight, which is not a good correction. It's over straightening, but I'm just showing you different ways. So you can undo that again, hit the return to go back, or hit the no, whichever you want to start again. Each time you need to click the straighten again. Maybe I want to straighten the photograph based on this pole. So I'm going to click from here to here. And so now that became vertical. Now, if that's vertical, the rest of the thing is a mess, right? But just play around and see how the computer uses either verticals or horizontals, which are usually the better answer, to straighten your photograph for you. And to try a new one, just go to this little backwards arrow and try a new one. Turn on the straighten. And now try again. And I'm now going to try again for the horizon. I'm going to click and drag my mouse kind of all the way across and let go. And the moment I let go, that's what the computer thinks is good. And now I'm going to hit the check mark or hit the return key. And then I'm going to look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks like a pretty good horizon line. I think I've straightened it correctly. And I have not deleted my crop pixels, so that if I want those pixels because I'd rather see something else, I can still get them back. Pretty cool. Everyone try that straighten tool. Sometimes it's the only thing that helps you. Like you have a horizon, and that horizon in the ocean is not straight. You can do it by eye as much as you want, and it's hard to get it right. It's hard to use that little grid, you know, that Linda was asking me to get it right. But drawing a line across the horizon from tip to tip, there's no chance, there's no way to get that one wrong. The horizon always straightens up. Any questions? Anything for whom it didn't work? Anything that you're applying and it won't do it for you?
Deanna, then is it just a matter of taste whether or not you want to straighten it with a pole or with a horizon?
Yeah, the problem is that the horizon is always going to have to be straight no matter what. I mean, there's photos, by the way, where you don't need it to be straight. I'm not saying that. But if you're trying to straighten it to horizon, the horizon is a good one. Poles, depending on your lens, see, this one is straightened out, but notice how this pole is going that way and this tree is going that way. The verticals, depending on the lens you're using, could be distorted. In fact, they're usually distorted, right? And so by using the up and down, it doesn't really help. The only time you might use up and downs is when you're photographing a building and you're trying to create, and you can fix that distortion of your lens, and you can use the up and down to find what the center point is. And then after that, you actually fix that building to look straight. You can do that in Photoshop. So that would be a reason to use the up and down. But for the most part, what for sure, there's no question, has to be straight would be the horizon line. And so you try to find the horizon in your photo. It's possible that if some photos you can't even find a horizon because you have a mountainscape and you're not sure. It's, you know, it's up and down. So the horizon is hard to find, in which case you find some element, some tree that's in the middle, and then you use that tree to straighten that one. And then that, as long as that tree was a straight tree, that might help you. But if there's a light poles tend to be straight, then you can use that light pole to help figure out what the horizon should be. If there's no real obvious answer to what the horizon line could be. All right. Any other questions? So go ahead. There's a lot of different photos in here that you can play around with that are not straight. There's some, for example, and this horizon here on this one is one of those weird horizons where, what's the real horizon on this one? Is it wrong? Is it just a natural curve? What's there? And so if you want to try it, you would have to be, this one wouldn't be so straight of an answer. Maybe the boy is leaning over, or maybe the photo is making him lean over. So you could try to say, well, let's make the boy look as if he's really straight, and then it's going to straighten him, and then the horizon will straighten up. So there's, you know, you use your judgment on some of them. But it's possible that a little boy wasn't very steady because he's learning how to walk. So who knows, right? So you just use your brain on the fact that which of the tools is going to be better for which situation, right? So
It's
play around.
amazing
You guys
how
have so
subtle
many.
that is.
What's that?
I was just going to say, it's amazing how subtle that is. When you looked at the picture, it looked really fisheye almost, and then just that tiny movement of him made
Just a
something in
little
me
bit.
kind of go,
Just a little bit makes a difference sometimes.
yeah, it felt
And
better.
sometimes it's not an issue. What matters is the kid, the face, whatever, and who cares what's the background. So many times having a crooked background doesn't make a bad photo. I don't say that every background has to be straight. But sometimes if it's just a little bit off, that bugs you a little bit, and you straighten it, like you said, suddenly it's like, oh, it all kind of falls into place, and then you can focus on what really matters. So a lot of that is a matter of artistic preference, but this is the tool that would help you make that choice. So you guys go ahead and don't save this photo. Rather, right now, if you need to close it without saving, and then open it up and practice different kind of options and cropping to see how it works. The one more thing I want to leave you alone with, because the class is over now by 10 minutes, is the fact that there's
what I was talking today about ratio. So let me undo this crop again. And there's one other, well, actually, no, I didn't need to undo it. So I'm going to redo it because the straightening has to happen first. You can't crop something without first straightening it. But once you've straightened it, then you can choose if you want to crop at a particular ratio fit for printing, because in the world of, printing commercially, it's either 4.5, 4x5s, 8x10s, 5x6, 4:6. These are the commercially correct. In which case you're going to force yourself, say I want a 5x7 out of this. Then in this case, it understood 5x7 when really you have a 7x5. So you can go over here and you can invert that to say 7x5. See that? And then you can grab this image and start stretching it out, stretching it in. And no matter what you do, it's going to end up giving you a 5x7 of that image. So say that I make it as big as I can. I know visually it's confusing when it's happening, but that's a 5x7 crop of this image that's already been straightened. If instead I wanted a 4:6 ratio, and I switch it in this case, then it's actually a longer photograph. 4:6 is longer than 5:7. And so I'll have more sides and less crops. And so this is just the ratio, okay? This is how you get to choose your own. And if you try to then maybe make, oh no, I don't want the sky, and you try to take only the sky, you can't, because it's also bringing in the sides, because you stuck it at a 4:6 ratio. So it'll still give you that ratio. If you want to be able to make this into a thin, long cut of just the airplane, you have to go with the word ratio there, and ratio, clear these numbers, and then there's no ratio. Then look, then I'm free to cut this image to be whatever I want it to be and make that be the photograph that I want. Hold on, I went too far. Make that be the crop that I want. So it has no particular ratio. And when I go cut, I know it's hard to see, then I end up with this long and thin, which doesn't fit into anything. And this would only work if I printed in my own printer, right? Because it wouldn't work for a 4:6, 5:7, or 8:10. So to do that, you have to be in that clear ratio with no numbers here. But if you want to have it help you know how to print it in any of these other ratios, then you can set it there. Okay, clear your choices and then keep running. I'll let you play around with that and then come up with questions of what did or didn't work for you during cropping. Try it with some of your photos that need cropping, okay? Or try it with any of the ones that are here. But if you do crop the ones that are here that we're going to use for class later, go ahead and don't save that, or save as my cropped version, give it your own name, so that the originals that we're working for in class, when I ask you to open this one, it's not cropped down to a head, okay? Because I want you to have the whole thing. All right? I'm going to stop sharing. Always the first fall classes are hard for me because I've come from the summer where I teach a 5-hour Photoshop class, and always 2.5 hours goes way too quickly. But on the other hand, for you guys who are just sitting there, probably 2.5 hours didn't go way too quickly. So thanks for hanging out, sitting in there. No. 11:55 says Carol again. No, you guys, I'm gonna go look at the schedule because this happened last week and someone said that too. Hang out if you need to leave, but I'll go ahead and go into Pipeline to see, because
The catalog says 11:25.
yeah, it's in fact, when I'm making it go to 11:30 because in my brain it says 11:30, but the catalog says 11:25. But let me check the official Pipeline catalog, which is the last word, because the printed catalog can have some mistakes. So I'm going to go look at the official catalog and see what the schedule is for it, for the class. So if you ever want to just find my classes or any particular instructor's classes, when you do this, you go to instructor and you just start writing my last name and MU, that's all you need to do. And then I show up and then hit search. So these are all my classes this session. And let me go to Photoshop. And, oh, they dropped my other Photoshop. Interesting. I need to talk to them. Anyway, here it is. This is the one we were in today. 9, oh, you're right. To 11:55. That doesn't make sense because we have 8 meeting. Okay. Well, then you are so right, Carol. And when did that switch? Because I have it written down as 25 and the catalog 75, my calendar is 25. Okay, so no, maybe I was right in that I was out of time because it wasn't supposed to be done. I don't know if that shifted in between or what, but good. Then we're not done. I'll keep teaching. How funny. Here we go. Back to, so this is the official thing. So this is the last word, all right? So I'm gonna go back to Zoom, to VMware, and we got a few more minutes. So hopefully you didn't leave. Hello, there's someone back there. If you left, come back. Of course, the ones who left are the ones who can't hear this, but oh well, we're down, 3 people signed out. Oh well, my mistake. I'll email people and let them know now that it's still 55. Here we go. So back to Photoshop, to the straighten file. I'm gonna undo all these things that I was showing you really quickly. And I want to do a little bit of that ratio work with you guys then, because it's something that does matter. For example, if you go take this picture out to understand how to manipulate those little numbers. So if you still have this file open, go back to crop, undo whatever crop you have, straighten again really quickly because you want to start by straightening it. There's no question that you don't want to crop without straightening. So straighten it again.
Screen. Share your screen.
What's that?
Share.
Oh,
your screen.
Sorry. Thank you. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So all I just did, okay, so let me redo what I just did, which is I just went and undid all my crops that I was showing you, the weird little crops. So straighten it again, undo your crops, and then straighten because you need to straighten first. And I found with this little photograph that if you go up from green to green, that's not a good straighten because there's a little hill there. I found that this is a more correct straighten where I'm following that line there, and then that gives it a better crop, which means that here I'm under that hill, and that's actually a better straightening for this image. Sorry, I put my finger in there and messed it up. So do that again. All right, and then now you can choose. And here's what I wanted to say about the grids. In the grids, I didn't mean to do that. I hit the other tool which straightened it, which cropped it. I apologize. I keep doing this trendy times, but hopefully you've seen. It's just that I went to another tool and it forced the crop. I wanted to leave it in this mode. So in this mode, when I'm working, these grids that appear, they're supposed to help you frame the image. So when you look at this image, there's the rule of thirds says that if you place the most salient point, the most important point, the point that you want to be the attention or the focus of this image, in the in some part on these lines, or even the intersection of these lines, then that's going to be an image that's going to be more attractive, more balanced, more, you'll look at it and go, ah, you know, versus something's wrong. And if you look at this image, the person is right in the middle of the photograph. And a person right in the middle of the photograph is one of the most boring things you can do. It makes for a very static, boring photo that just doesn't, you know, move well. That said, this photo isn't just about the boy, it's about the boy and his plane. And if you look at the plane, kind of extends over. So this one has a little bit more to it than just the boy, right? So if you look at the entire image as this is the part that's interesting, then maybe we are beginning to hit one of those 1/3 lines, right? So the question we have is, can we make it, with the help of these lines, be an image that has a little bit more interest to it? And let me go ahead and just finish this crop so that I have the straighten taken care of and I don't have to worry about those lines. So I'm going to click yes. So everyone just straighten your image once. And now look at your image as if you had those lines, and it's hard to visualize them without really like having them on, right? Which is why it's cool to actually turn them on sometimes to see those grids. There's many different like rules of balance and ratio. The default one is the rule of thirds. It's the one that I'm talking about right now. So when you go and start doing your cropping or your clicking or any of that, you can choose which ones to have. And I think that if I pay attention to the rule of thirds, maybe it's better if he is higher up there, because right now and let me just show you again, right now a lot of my attention, if I really try to pay attention to this image, a lot of my attention, instead of going here, is going into this. Like, if this is the whole point of this picture, do I really need a lot of this stuff in there? You know what I mean? Now, it could be that I'm trying to point out that he's in this place with this hillside, but nah, this picture isn't about where this kid is. This picture is about the kid. So then all of this is superfluous. It's really unnecessary to the story of this picture. Y'all need to look at the picture and what story you're trying to tell with that picture. And that's what cropping is all about. And get rid of the stuff that doesn't help the story. So all of this is just distraction. On top of that, it's out of, you know, exposures is off and stuff like that. So why bother keeping it in there? So if I use the rule of thirds, I can put this part of the image in a much more appropriate place for balance. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click in this image, and using this rule of thirds, making sure the ratio is clean and there's nothing there, I'm going to bring this down a little bit and see how I can put the nose of the airplane in that corner and his eyes on this line. Okay, so that's just based on the rule of thirds. I'm making this a more probable good place for the positioning to be in. When I say go, I'm left with this image. Now, rules are to be taken and tossed or not, as much, you know, for better or for worse. But if I look at this image now, forgetting what it was, imagine you didn't know what it was before. Does this tell the story better than before? The kid with his plane, are you distracted by stuff? Are you more focused on what the photo is all about, or not? Or did you prefer it? Because a lot of this is a matter, you know, artistic interpretation. Or did you prefer it when you had an idea of what setting he was in? What do you guys think or have to say about it?
I like just him in the plane.
Say it again. I can't hear.
I like just him in the plane.
You like to just see him in the plane without the mountains? Okay. Other points of view there, in agreement or disagreement?
I totally agree. I would just crop a little of the bottom out to lose his pants.
Actually, there you go. Someone Me too. What bugs me now about this is that little bit right there, which before didn't bug me because there was so much other stuff bugging me on top. Many times when you clean up an image, you discover, well, there's other stuff, right? So now that my eyes go in here to look at that and then they go, whoa, what's that? Because it's a bright spot. Human eyes, we're attracted to brightness. We got rid of all that brightness and suddenly, whoa, what's that all about? And so then I go, oh, Q-kit, whoa, and my eyes just kept dropping there. So maybe I need to crop that out. Now, if I crop that out, I'll be left with a long and thin image that would not be a traditional image. So we can do that, but we could also maybe Photoshop a little bit of extra t-shirt in there. I'm not too much about Photoshopping reality, but cropping could work. So let me crop that again. So I turn on the crop again. And now I go down here and let's see what happens if I get rid of most of that t-shirt. Well, what I'm finding is that maybe I'm needing to move a little bit of this in to not make it be so off in format. And maybe, depending or not, you can try bringing a little bit more of the stuff that was in the background there, or you can take all of it out. Just depends on, it's a choice, because over here you have some pretty bright houses as well. So maybe you don't want those bright houses. I'm going to leave some of those in there and try that one. But you see, because I didn't delete my pixels, I can still go back and forth and in and out until I find the perfect crop. And that's the goal of not having deleted my pixels. You say, okay, you look at it and you go, no, better, no, worse, no, too much. And you just do it again. So now I look at that and I go, yeah, my eyes are not being drawn there. I left a little touch, a little white little line there, but that's okay. I can just, that's easy to just do a little Photoshop. And then I like it better. Maybe what I can do is I can darken some of these things so they don't distract me so much. But other than that, that seems like a better choice. For someone who's totally into faking reality, I can just Photoshop some grass over this area and not even see that. Then he's a kid on some white grassy field playing with his plane. All of that is doable in Photoshop. Okay, so
that was one of the points that I was going to make. Is as a person who used to fly those model airplanes, radio controlled airplanes, you don't want to see any trees or light posts or telephone poles or anything like that, because that can make it a real bad day.
I know, right? So yeah, no, my husband is totally into model airplanes, and he is trying to get my youngest guy into it some years ago, and so they would be often fighting and fine. But this here is down in the middle of the city, and the only time they tried to fly something over here, it disappeared over the high school or the middle school, and they never recovered it. It went into the roof. So, yeah. So trust me, they learned their lesson pretty quickly. So then they go out into the hills to do it. But this is right here is the Santa Barbara Junior High. So this is that Ortega Park right next to it. And yeah, it disappeared. It never came back. And I don't know if it was this one or which one, but one of their planes did that. So yeah, you don't want to be in there. So for someone who knows about model airplane flying, you might want to just put more grass in there and go, okay, that's a real photo, right? of the airplane in a place where it should be flown. We can do that. Now, I purposely want to leave some of the hillside in here because I want to show you something else. So I'm going to go back to the crop. So again, you go back to the crop tool. The tools show up again. And I'm going to let some more in. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm actually trying to show you how not deleting the crop pixels is a good idea, because you can change your mind. You can change this photo. You can take this photo and print it this way one time, and another time you go, you know what? I want this time to print it to show how we're in Santa Barbara, and you want to show the hills, and that's the Riviera. You can do that only because you did not delete the crop pixels. They're all still there, even a year later or 2 years later. So now I'm going to leave some of those guys in, and I'm going to move this down a little bit so that I see a bit more of the image. And I'm going to say, okay, So I don't know which one is a better crop than the other, but the fact that I didn't allow the crib gives me the choices. So hopefully as I'm doing this, you're doing it as well, and you're practicing what I'm talking about the flexibility of moving, changing, and mainly getting accustomed to one thing I know that happens when I'm in front of people and no one has said it happened to them yet, is that somehow they get something like this happening, and then they get like, oh my God, what happened to my whole picture? It disappeared. And no one said anything yet, but it always happens in the in-person class, right? So, by the way, go ahead and, hi Sam, by the way. If something happened like that, if you don't know where your picture is, remember to just kind of go back in your history. And one of the things that happens is that when you turn your crop tool on, what you have in, oops, I got the wrong tool, I'm sorry. When you turn your crop tool on and you start working, that tool is kind of dangerous because you can actually click on anything. Let me just, when you turn your crop tool on, anything you do when it's in that mode is going to work. So if another way to use this tool is to actually go in here and click and drag around what you want. So say I only want this and I let go, then I've done my crop. And for some of you guys, by mistake, maybe you clicked and dragged a really tiny bit and you lost everything, and that's why suddenly everything disappeared. So simple as it might seem, the way I show it, it isn't really that simple. The crop tool can be confusing because all the stuff that's happening in the background, when you move something, so many other things happen that I want you guys to get comfy. You really change your photo with a good crop, for better or for worse. Some people really like cropping in. I'm more of a do it right on camera, right, than a cropping in. But sometimes there is a rational, real reason to crop in, and a little bit of a crop goes a long way. Before I move into the ratio thing for you guys, any question there? Are you comfy with the going back and forth on the history of your crops? Going all the way back to the very beginning, just getting the straightening and starting with the crop again. You need to be able to become, I've done so many crops that each one of these is one history of my crops. And I can go back to this one, or I can go back to that one, or I can go back to that one, or I can go back to the very beginning. So if you've been doing crops with me, every time you do it, you should have some history here. And this is the last, the next to last, the forward. You can't just jump to that one without losing the rest, okay? So that's the one that I straightened. And when I start my croppings again, I go to the straightened and then I turn this off, and then I start from the already straightened but not cropped. So I want you guys comfy with the doing and redoing things using your history. And then you get back to, okay, it's straight, but I haven't gotten a good crop yet. So you can also just, as I said before, click and drag. And now I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to leave most of the grass, but I'm going to cut him right there. And so by eyeballing it, I'm putting him in about the 2/3 position and letting go, and then saying, okay. And that, maybe with some grass in here, might be the most pleasing balance-wise composition. This is pretty strong, so this is about 1/3, right? But you would have to print this in a very special frame with a lot of white around it for it to be something you could put in there, because it doesn't fit in any real frame. So in the case of this photo, none of the preset ratios would work. Notice also that they have choices for PPI. They'll tell you what if you want, for sure, a photograph that you want to print 4x5 in 300 PPI, or 8.5 by 11 in 300 PPI. That means that these you'll be able to print. So you can just do some quick chops this way. These are like presets for things that you already know you want. And then these are just ratios. All right, any other question? Hello?
Nope.
Things that didn't work. People who've had trouble with it. That's what I want to hear. Someone for whom it's not working.
Yeah. Now we're at class time end.
I can't hear you.
Now we at class time end.
Oh, it is now at 11:59. Now I'm over the second class time. Okay. Still, I always offer to stay behind and ask people who need help. Who you're all welcome to sign out. But if there's any particular thing that didn't work or that you need a hand with, I'll stay here to answer. So officially, class is over. Don't forget to sign out of your. Go to your Google Drive. Go to your folder. Sorry, not to your folder. Go to your Google Drive and go to your Gears preferences, and then say disconnect account. Okay, disconnect account, and that way the next time we open up, you'll have it. You'll have the photos available to you. Do that, and then close your Photoshop, close everything, and next time you sign in, you have to sign in again. All right, any questions about something weird that happened to yours cropping tool? I'm here to answer. Other than that, bye-bye. Take care. I'm here, but if you need to go,
your
go.
custom crop tool.
What's
Or
that?
I missed your custom crop thing that you did.
Oh, the custom crop would be, I'm going to undo this right now. The custom crop tool would be when you first pick up the tool, instead of bringing in the edges, you can just click and drag around what you want. So say that I want just his face. I'm going to click right here and drag and make a little, let go, and boom. Now the crop is only around his face. See that? So that's like a different way to do it. But once I'm at that point, then I still have to use the rest of the tools to start moving it to make something different. So say that's the little bit that I wanted. And then when you put your mouse inside, you can move it up and down to center it inside of the little window you've made. And so if that's what I want, there I go. And now I say crop and I hit the mark, then there's my crop.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, guys? Anything you need to show me that was or wasn't working for you? Nope. It's working for everyone. Scott, Dot,
I'm fine.
Marie, Peggy, Lisa. All right. A lot of you guys, what's left is your second devices. So when I hang out, cut out, they'll all disconnect. But all right.
Thank you, Dana. Have a great weekend.
You're welcome. Marie, before you go, remember that photo that you wanted me to talk about that you showed me that I couldn't see? Do you have it handy? You want to share with me now and we can talk about it now?
Yeah, let me try to get to it. Actually, 2/3 of it is, there's 2/3 of it.
Yeah, but it's so tiny. It's so tiny. If you want to make it a bit bigger.
Let me see
if you see the original one. Otherwise, it's too small for me to see the details.
Right. Let me close out Photoshop.
And you don't have to. I just thought because I wanted to give you some
I
feedback.
I would love some. Let me see how to do this. Let me say goodbye to this. Goodbye to that. Don't save. Close that out. Close that out. Okay, now photography, fantasy. Maybe you could help somebody else while I just scroll.
No one else seems to have any questions.
Okay, fantasy, here we go. Open. Whoops, fantasy to PS. Oh, no, oh, where is it? Fantasy 111.
I don't want to put you in a spot. I just thought I'd offer. So if you
right, well, you know what? Little Miss Perfect.
If I go to my emails, I could probably find it in my emails. Let me go and see. Meanwhile, I don't know.
Probably quicker.
Let me try and find it. While you try to find it, I'll try to find it too.
Why? Oops. Is that you? Oh, it disappeared.
Did you call it fantasy too? Yep, there it is.
Yeah. Okay.
I found it in the email. So here we go. Let me share. It's inside of your email, so it's not in Photoshop, but let me share it so others can see it too. So it's just
There we
over
go.
I'm not opening it inside of Photoshop, so I can't zoom in and out correctly. But anyway, here's a good image of it. So yeah, Marie, it's really fun. She grabs, different things and combines them. And when you look deeper, like for example, in small, I hadn't seen this little fishy there that you put in there underwater. I had to make it bigger to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. There's some banging happening. Let me.
Is that you?
Sorry about that. It's my son who's trying to open a coconut, and I'm like, I'm still in class, guys. He's trying to open a coconut with a hammer and making a tremendous amount of noise. It worked, but it made noise. Okay.
Little
So here's-
arrow on
what's
the
that?
left is from the National Gallery at the Smithsonian, and I gave him the roses and the martini.
So this you got like from some archive photo? And then
No,
this
I
you
took the
added?
photo. I took.
Oh, you took,
the photo.
okay. You took this picture and
Yeah.
then you added the little illustrations there. That's so cute.
Right.
And then
The whale
got
in the water.
so was the whale in the water already? That picture
Yes.
is of a whale. That is a picture of a whale. You take that one too?
Yes, I took. The only one I didn't take is me sliding in on the parasail.
Oh my God. Where did you get that whale? I'm sorry, but that's
Magdalena Bay down at Baja.
wow.
I actually petted a whale. That was so exciting. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
And then, of course, the butterflies. I have
That's
a collection
amazing.
of butterfly
And then this is you coming into the whole image that someone
right.
took
And
of you.
little Eros is welcoming me. Maybe.
Okay, no, I love, it's just so fun. You always put these fun things together. Technically, the only comment I want to make is that the only thing that jars me technically is that the whale and the water are beautifully sharp and they're in really good resolution, but the butterfly is not. So in comparison, it's not that the butterfly, if you look at the butterfly, it's kind of soft and this is really sharp. So within the lack of reality of this photo, of course, by the way, it's not like I'm saying it needs to look real, but even your fantasy images, you want to have it look like it could be real. There could be a big butterfly on this guy's nose. Then they at the very least should share the quality. And I am sure that you might have other butterflies that are totally tack sharp, or you might try to sharpen it a little bit, because this is the only part that glares out at me because they're so next to each other. Now, if that is or not so much sharp, or that is so not so much sharp, wouldn't affect the whale so much as it does, because they'd be at a different angle or distance. Technically, this should be further than this, so it's okay if this were not so much in focus, although it is. But these two supposedly you're showing them at the same level. So you might want to find a butterfly, a version of butterfly, or a butterfly, the same one, another picture of it, or try to take that layer and see if you can sharpen just that layer a little bit more so that it matches the background. You know what I'm trying to say? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I really appreciate that too. It's been months, but thank you.
No, that's fine. You don't have to. And then the other thing too is that you seem to have merged this ocean with a different sky. And over here, it's kind of fine, but then over here, it's getting kind of hazy and so like, was this image one that had long ocean and so you faked a line, or was
No,
there
what
something
it
in the
is-
way there?
Well, it had a different sky, and actually there was a coastline out there.
Uh-huh.
So I took out the coastline and I
Got
put
it.
in a different sky.
So I'm
And I
wondering if
do.
you can do a cleaner, like find a sky that already has a horizon, another sky that has an ocean horizon, where you can blend the oceans into the ocean, that might be a bit more realistic. It just, that doesn't look like a natural horizon. Here you have a cleaner cut. So it could work, but this is where it kind of fades into, well, that's clearly a Photoshop. See how this side is different than that side? So see if maybe,
like I got halfway through with the line and stopped.
yeah. And then it got kind of fuzzy over there. And then here it even dips. So maybe even this dip is what pulls it more to my attention. And it's probably just that it's lighter, but it looks like a dip. So, and then that's kind of, so I would, you know, try to recut this line in what you have, make it a cleaner. Horizons are pretty sharp. Look at any real photo of a real horizon and they're pretty sharp, not tack sharp, like, you know, a straight ruler line, but they are pretty sharp. Where the ocean ends and the sky begins, it's pretty sharp. So that would be a real horizon. It's not tack sharp like that line, but that's how a horizon should look. Not like that, but you can imitate that. You can even clone this side into that, you know, if you can't do it with this piece. So those are my only.
Yeah, I could probably just cut it out and put a straight line in and bring the sky, or bring it up a little bit.
Bring it up a little. Give it a try. Give it a try to see. So those are the two things that seem off as far as making it look like a fantasy where everything fits. Just the horizon line and the butterfly. The rest of it is awesome. I like your idea. I like the placement of stuff. The balance is perfect. The color is fun. The theme is fun, of course. Just technologically, this makes me go, you know, maybe you have a different butterfly or something like that. I don't know. That you can use if you don't have a sharp one of it, because it's hard to fake sharpness. Even if you do sharpen that layer, this is so tack sharp. This is so precise. I mean, you can count the barnacles on his nose, that it really needs a sharp butterfly there.
It's funny about the whale picture, because that was the first one I took when we were down there. And I probably took 20 others and nothing came out as good as
it's so hard. That's why I didn't think it was yours, just because it looks like a professional photo, and not that you are professional or not. But my first instinct is this is a you know, very good close-up that's very sharp of a whale that's so hard to get. So my first thought was, oh, this is a photo, and you use your photos around it. So no, congratulations. That's beautiful.
No, it's just a, you know, a real very old point and shoot, because the whale is probably 12 years old.
Wow. Well,
So
12 years old or not, it's still tack sharp.
So
The
thank you
barnacles.
very much. Yeah.
No, it's awesome. So anyway, there you go. Finally got around to it.
Super. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Take care then. Bye.
Have a good weekend.
You too. See you next week.